Alright, looks like we are ready to begin. Hi there, how's it going, people? How have you been? How have you been? We are ready to begin. Perfect. Perfect. Everything seems to be working correctly. There we go. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. What do we have for today? For today, we'll continue with the ultimate showcase of my PC game collection. Remember, I do this series kind of like a guided tour through the different genres of video games available on PC. Pretty much 99% of the games. So I cover all genres, all of the sub-genres that I like, pretty much most of them. So I do these documentaries, let's say, I do these collection videos, just so people can discover a whole new universe of PC games in this case. So, except for console exclusives, here you'll have a pretty good idea of everything that the gaming industry has to offer in terms of different genres. You'll also discover a lot of PC exclusive games. Last time we covered the whole RPG section that you see down here. The details and the description will be in the description of the YouTube VOD, in case you're watching this as a YouTube VOD. I do this every year, kind of like a collection tour, just that mine is digital rather than physical. That's pretty much the idea. But well, for today we'll cover, or today we are gonna cover the RTS section of the collection. Hopefully we'll be able to cover this second row here. It will include RTS, real-time strategy, real-time tactics, squad-based tactics, and the massive online battle arena genre, commonly known as MOBA. So we have plenty of things to do today. Alright, so as you know, next week I won't be streaming because I'll be busy on Tuesday and Thursday, and if I stream, I'll try to either resume Hellgate London or the MOBA, the special MOBA, offline MOBA showcase that we're gonna do eventually. We can do it on Sunday of next week, or we can continue with the third row, the FPS row. But well, we'll see what we do. Okay, so as you know, next week I won't be streaming, except for Sunday, but I won't be streaming on Tuesday and Thursday, and we will return the other week after April 14th, right? So that's pretty much the schedule. Okay, people, this is something that I do every year. For those of you who are joining us right now, if you have stumbled upon my humble YouTube channel and you're watching this as a YouTube VOD, I do this every year. I cover this because there are some slight modifications that I always do. So yeah, pretty much I always cover this complete collection so people can expand their they can discover a whole new universe, pretty much like when we discover what's outside our solar system in real life. Here's the complete collection of all PC game genres. I documented all of these throughout the years, so it's always something extremely important for me, something extremely important for me personally, so I love covering these. Alright, people, let us begin. And we begin with none other than probably what I have here, the father of all RTS games. This is a pretty heated topic because the RTS genre, just like last time I referred to the isometric action RPG genre as the zombie genre because of how many times it died and revived with different gameplay mechanics. Just like that, the RTS genre that you are gonna see here also had a golden age back in the early 2000s and the late 90s. So, pretty much, this will also follow a similar pattern, but it will be different because this is. If I called the isometric action RPG the zombie genre because of how many times it revived and how many times it died and revived, the RTS genre is definitely the black hole genre because of how forgotten, how sadly forgotten it is nowadays. Something that I've been defending on my channel constantly, that the RTS genre should be thriving, but is sadly one of the most forgotten genres nowadays. So let's take a trip back to the past and begin with the first StarCraft. Now, is this a normal version of StarCraft? No, this is of course a StarCraft remastered, the version that Blizzard recently released. It's an amazing game. It's an amazing version of the original masterpiece from 1998, if I'm not mistaken. Then the Brood War expansion was released shortly after. But well, we begin with it. I would personally say that while the original had and also the remastered version retains that the pathfinding issues that it had, it's impossible to deny that StarCraft basically shaped the destiny of the genre and is pretty much the long-standing king of it because it's the only one that still retains um, the esports scene of out of all of the Blizzard games after Warcraft 3 Reforged, that we all know how that ended up, right? Yeah. So yeah, we could say that StarCraft is the most stable, without a doubt, out of all of the RTS games, consistently, because Age of Empires, until Microsoft recently released the definitive editions of the classic Age of Empires games, there was a huge batch of years in which you couldn't play Age of Empires comfortably on modern resolutions, on modern PCs, and etc. Though, fortunately, Forgotten Empires released previously to the definitive version that we got now, they released a version of classic Age of Empires with their new campaigns some years ago. I think it was 2017, something like that. But well, if I had to say, I think StarCraft, alongside its successor several years later in 2010, StarCraft 2, here you can see that I used custom covers designed by me, definitely were the most stable out of the three huge kings of the genre that we all know: Age of Empires, Warcraft, and StarCraft. I call it the black hole genre. I use this analogy because you'll see that in this genre, in the RTS genre, those three kings have pretty much consumed and completely annihilated the rest of the AA, indie, or less famous RTS games released in a huge period of time. We are talking about, it's a genre that is extremely conservative in terms of what games people pick or decide to play. Kind of like there are three kings, and the rest of the games simply don't stand a chance to kind of like breach into this market, into the market of this specific genre, the RTS genre. And well, it's that's why I call it the black hole genre. So I would say StarCraft. Needless to say, we all know what StarCraft is. Is the most stable out of the three tyrants, out of the three kings of the genre. That's why I always feel passionate, because as I always say, the RTS genre is my favorite game genre alongside racing. So it's a special genre for me. Now, what do we have here? Something that I need to showcase on stream. StarCraft Must Recall. Something that we're gonna showcase eventually. StarCraft Must Recall. So, what's this? What's this, and why do I have it here? This is a StarCraft 1 all over again. Here I have StarCraft 1 Remastered, the Brood War expansion, the official Blizzard remasterization, the remaster of StarCraft, of the first one. And here I have StarCraft Must Recall. So, what's this? This is the engine of StarCraft 2, the one you see here, the modern one that we all see, applied to StarCraft 1. Interesting, right? To the story of StarCraft 1. So it's a StarCraft 2 in terms of engine and graphics, but the story is StarCraft 1. For a lot of years, this was the best representation of StarCraft 1, because the original game was unplayable on Windows 10, it was extremely difficult, blah 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 blah, the resolution wasn't the best. However, you must be wondering, why did you keep that when the remaster of StarCraft was finally released? Just like I kept, as I commented last time, the Median Excel mode of Diablo 2 when the Diablo 2 Resurrected version was announced. Because StarCraft Must Recall, first of all, since it uses the engine of StarCraft 2, has a much smoother pathfinding. This is professionally done. A group of extremely professional modders did it, so the quality is outstanding. And besides that, there's one thing. Remember that I always mention that for me it's a critical flaw when games are extremely easy. Well, the campaign of the first StarCraft, not Brood War. Brood War was a bit harder. I think it was the perfected formula. But the story of the original StarCraft, which I think is one of the best stories in the gaming industry ever, it's extremely easy. If you play that game and you compare it to Warcraft 3, StarCraft 1 is extremely easy. It's extremely easy in comparison to the rest of the RTS games. Extremely easy. You'll have more issues with the pathfinding of the units, to be honest, than with the difficulty of facing a lot of artificial intelligences. It's extremely easy. However, StarCraft Must Recall is brutally hard because it uses the engine of StarCraft 2. And StarCraft 2 was extremely hard. It's extremely hard for the average player, not for a Korean professional of StarCraft 2, of course. But not for professional players of esports players. Not for esports players, but for the average player, StarCraft 2, not the second expansion, not Heart of the Swarm, that one is easy, but Legacy of the Void, a bit harder, and the first one, and definitely the best in my opinion, expansion, the original expansion, the Terran expansion, Wings of Liberty, which I think is the best out of all of the StarCraft campaigns. It's kind of like tied with the main original story. I would say Wings of Liberty is the best. It's the hardest out of the three of them. That is the best, pretty much, the first expansion, Wings of Liberty. Heart of the Swarm is pathetically easy. Legacy of the Void, it's a bit harder. It's kind of like a middle term. They realized that Heart of the Swarm was way too easy. But well, an insane game that certainly deserves your praise. You also have the epilogue there, so pretty well done. And StarCraft Must Recall uses StarCraft 2 engines, the engine present in that game, and it will allow you to play a harder version, a much harder version of StarCraft 1, right? Using the engine here. So that's why I kept this, even if I had the remastered version of StarCraft 1. Previous to that, I had a modded version of StarCraft 1, so I always managed to play that game. I couldn't live without having this game here. It's basically one of the best games of my favorite genre, so yeah. Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos. Here we have a pretty similar situation. I managed to beat, of course, StarCraft 1 and 2, all of the campaigns on hard mode, on brutal difficulty, the worst difficulty, the highest difficulty. Here and here all finished, and I'm saving this one to showcase it on stream because I read that it's extremely hard. So well, I had that as a challenge right there. Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos, what could I say? The second king of the RTS genre, the second black hole of the genre. This one is brutally hard. The same goes for its expansion, its legendary expansion, Frozen Throne, right there. These are probably superior to StarCraft in terms of quality, I would say personally, because while StarCraft has thrived as a multiplayer game, especially after the release of the second game recently, the first one also had a huge following. While those thrived in the multiplayer aspect of them, Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos and its expansion Frozen Throne, I think, are the epitome and pretty much the pinnacle of single player RTS games done right. They are pretty much the best. I would say they are superior to StarCraft in terms of single player content, especially these two original versions. You'll see why now. Rather than the reforged version that I have here. I'll explain why I do this now. But first, these two games are brutally hard. I would highly recommend them for single player on hard difficulty. It will take you months to complete them on that difficulty. They are brutally hard. You need a much higher APM when compared to StarCraft. You'll need a much higher you'll need much better decision making skills, because you'll have to make decisions like this in a fraction of a second, and you will need to devise strategies that stretch far beyond anything that StarCraft 1 could possibly offer, and the same goes for StarCraft 2. These are brutally hard on hard difficulty. Most people wouldn't be able to complete them. The final level of the first of the base game of Reign of Chaos is brutal, but then Frozen Throne is even more brutal at some points. These games stretch the meaning of single player RTS games and single player campaigns to the very limit. You'll have to spend hours and hours and reloading a lot of times just to survive in these two games. And even if you survive, it will be extremely difficult for you to complete them. So yeah, I'd say they are probably if not the most difficult RTS games of all time. Now, what happened with this? Well, first of all, this was broken at launch. This version is hated. I also criticized it. It was completely broken. It was a disaster. So yeah, it was a complete mess. Just in case you are interested, here, well, now I'll explain it. This is just an updated version of those two games that you saw there, right? It combines the base game and the expansion, and it has all of them packed together with new cinematics. So yeah, You can play it offline. For a lot of months, this was unplayable for a lot of years. An absolute disaster. But well, after thousands of patches, now it's playable. And I keep it here because I want to experience it with the new graphics and those things. I haven't played this version yet. But yeah, basically what I saw is that here, and this is the reason why I keep the originals, is because the reforged version dumbed down the difficulty to the point that it's no longer the original game. So this is kind of like, if you cannot finish these two on hard difficulty, I did finish them on hard difficulty, both of them, with all of the side quests, with everything. It took me years. If you cannot finish these two, the reforged version is pretty much the easier version, I guess. Or you can play these on normal difficulty. Oh well. The real challenge is finishing these two on hard difficulty. That's the real experience. But well, you have this one. This has prettier graphics and not much else. I still have to try it. But well, since I completed both of these, there's no point. So yeah, pretty much. Now, what do I keep those two? First of all, because of the difficulty I mentioned, just like with StarCraft. But there's a second reason, and that these two are modded versions of Warcraft 3. And by that I mean that they are graphically modded. By me. Not I didn't create the graphics, but I've applied the Rebirth mod, I think it's the name, which has been constantly been updated, and trust me, they look extremely good. They are, of course, faithful to the originals, but they have much better textures and they look completely amazing. So these two versions don't have the graphics from 2002, from the original versions. They are extremely updated. I think they used assets of Heroes of the Storm, I don't know, something like that. Highly recommended the Rebirth mod. Be careful because it has been constantly updated and it's easy to download an older version of it. But yeah, it makes these two games look much more modern. The only problem that I haven't been able to fix is that these two are capped at 60 FPS, and the reforged version supposedly has unlocked frame rates. We will see. That's the reason and the theory that I need to test. So yeah, pretty much. And here in Frozen Throne, I have custom maps. I have, that this game, Warcraft 3, is also extremely important because it's responsible, something that should be highlighted because we are covering the whole history of all of the strategy genres. In this case, real-time strategy. Warcraft 3 is responsible for probably spawning, and that's why I consider it more important than StarCraft, for spawning two more genres, two more sub-genres of the strategy genre. Tower defense, that we are not gonna cover today, and the massive online battle arena, the MOBAs, that we are gonna cover today. So this game single-handedly created two more genres, the tower defense genre and the MOBA genre. So that's why I would say that Warcraft 3 is the most influential RTS of all time. Because of that, because of the fact that the campaigns that present in here are probably the hardest I've ever stumbled upon, because of the fact that the lore of Warcraft 3 is the best ever created in any RTS game as well, so much that it also spawned World of Warcraft. It didn't create the MMORPG genre, but it popularized it. So you can see that when a single game influences three other different genres, it creates two, and it completely reshapes one more, the MMORPG genre with World of Warcraft. you can say that the game is influential. It's probably these two are the base game is probably the most influential, and also its expansion. They are probably the most influential, one of the most influential games of all time. So yeah. There you have the idea, and I highly suggest you learn to mod the originals, and you play the originals on hard difficulty. There you'll have the real experience. Legend says that what sets gamers apart from gods is that they are able to complete these two games on hard difficulty. No, that one is a joke, but yeah, pretty much you get the idea. These are brutally hard, much more than StarCraft, than Age of Empires, than anything you can possibly fathom. Warcraft 3 Reforged. We have here, so yeah, pretty much you get the idea. The original game, as I've said, you have a lot of. Here I have, besides the graphical mods, I have custom campaigns for Warcraft 1 and 2. That's how I played Warcraft 1 and 2. Being recreated here with the engine of Warcraft 3. There are mods for those. And there's also thousands of well, you know, the MOBA, the Defense of the Ancients 1. Defense of the Ancients 1 was a mod of Warcraft 3, and then Blizzard forgot to you know to keep the license. They forgot to kind of like continue, kind of like they stopped declaring that the license was property of their game, that it was a mod of their game, that Defense of the Ancients 1 was a property of Warcraft 3. They forgot, and then Bulb, of course, saw the chance, and they developed Defense of the Ancients 2, commonly known as Dota 2. So yeah, that's the story. That's pretty much the story. How Blizzard fucked up, and that's how they lost the battle for the supremacy in the MOBA genre. But well, that's pretty much the idea. Good job there on Bold. Good job there. Lord Gaben was extremely intelligent there. So yeah, pretty much. Age of Empires 1 Definitive Edition. I am playing this one. Of course, I played all of the original Age of Empires games on the hardest difficulty back in the day. I also played the previous version to this one, which was the one Forgotten Empires also released back in 2017, which I think, yeah, it didn't update the graphics. I remember it didn't update the graphics, but it added new campaigns, so it was good. But this one, of course, the definitive edition incorporated all of that content with updated graphics. So perfect. Age of Empires 1, I'm playing this one, the definitive edition. The pathfinding of the original game is still present here, so it has that flaw. The campaign of this definitive version has turned out to be, I'm still playing it, I'm on the at the beginning of the Roman campaigns. I've already finished the rest of them, the Egyptian, Greek, Babylonian, Japanese, I think it was Yamato, and Hittite, and I am at the Roman campaign. On hard difficulty, on the hardest difficulty, be careful because this game is also brutally hard. It's the closest to one of the closest to World of Warcraft, to Warcraft 3 that I've seen, because I think this definitive version truly improved not only the graphics, not only the pathfinding, though it didn't fix it completely, but it's brutally hard. Brutally hard. I have I'm having a lot of difficulties beating the artificial intelligence on the hardest difficulty on skirmish mode in this game. On the fastest speed, of course, on the fastest speed and the hardest difficulty. But yeah. Sometimes I win, sometimes the artificial intelligence wins, so that's always a good sign. It's like playing against another player, against a professional player on the hardest difficulty, pretty much. So, yes, if you're looking for a challenge, here you have it. It's no longer exclusive to the Microsoft Store, so you can get it on Steam. Something positive that they finally removed that disaster from this game. So yeah, pretty much Age of Empires. What could I say about it in general as a franchise? Probably when we talk about it, we talk about the second one, the most famous one. As I've said, I playing them in order once again, so I'm stuck there on Age of Empires 1 because some of the missions of the campaign are also brutally hard at the fastest speed and the hardest difficulty. So good. I think it's something extremely positive that they made it near impossible to complete. So yeah, not near impossible. If you practice, you'll be able to do it, but you won't win it the first time you start a scenario of the campaign. You won't be able to beat it. So yeah. Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, pretty much the main entry in the series. Age of Empires 2. I played some skirmishes here. Of course, I am saving the campaigns because, as I've said, I played the 2017 version and the original, of course. The original was the second game I ever played, like ever. No, the third one. I think it was the third one if we count Pokemon Yellow on the Game Boy Color. Yeah, the third one, I think. Yeah, or could it be the second one and Pokemon Yellow was later? Yeah, well, something like that. One of the first games I played. I think it was the second one though. Well, Age of Empires 2. What could I say about it? It's perfection. It's the third king of the RTS genre, responsible for destroying the rest of the unknown RTS games. An important game for the history of video games. This game is pretty much a must-play for everyone on the planet, just like Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 1 and 2. It's pretty much you can skip Age of Empires 1, but you cannot skip Age of Empires 2. Pretty much that's the consensus. I don't know if it will be as brutally hard as the original on the hardest difficulty. I think it will be, but I think it won't be as terrible as Age of Empires 1 because this one has the pathfinding problem. Like some units sometimes get stuck and those things. So here, if you know how to play, and besides this one, added some interesting changes when compared to the first version, which had some flaws. For example, you cannot construct gates in the in Age of Empires 1, and here you can construct gates. So I know it sounds silly, but consider this: if you cannot construct gates, you have to leave a part of your base kind of like vulnerable to attacks, because otherwise you cannot gather resources here. So you cannot simply close your base 100% here because you will run out of resources. So you are forced to attack and most of the time get killed here. But here you can close your base, you can do different things, you can devise more strategies, units can enter buildings, units can enter the town center, which allows you to repel, to fend off early rushes, early rushes from the artificial intelligence, in my experience, so it makes it much more normal and accessible. And it makes the gameplay mechanics much better overall, because you'll be able to fend off early rushes. Um, you'll be able to place archers inside of towers, so that'll allow you to defend yourself a bit more. And in this one, no, you have it simply create units, and the one with the biggest army wins. There's no strategy. It's difficult to devise a defensive strategy here. That's the thing. It's difficult to devise a defensive strategy. Here you can play a defensive strategy much easier, which at some points it's needed, and it makes the gameplay much more rich. It makes it more rich, makes it richer. So yeah, that's pretty much the idea. Age of Empires 3, I also played this one a lot, the original version, up until recently. This one has all of the expansions. The only expansion I never played is the last one, the Asian Dynasties. I still have to play that one, the Asian Dynasties. I have to play the Asian Dynasties and the things that they've added here. One thing that I don't like is that they replaced the word colonial age with the word commerce age or something like that. I don't like that censorship. And I will point it out, because I don't like it when political issues get into the creative minds of video games. That's disgusting. The word is colonial age, because here in the Americas we were colonies, and the people here were settlers, were colonists. So it's colonial age. I wonder if there's a mod to restore the original word, but well, what are you gonna do? They also replaced some of the native tribes, the Native American tribes dances. So this game is heavily censored. If that's a problem for you, you'll have to get the original. I certainly hate it. I don't like it. But well, I think that with mods, I have the hope that it will eventually be able to restore it to its former glory, right? But in terms of gameplay mechanics and the rest, it's the same great game from 2005. I remember the first time I saw this game physically in a pretty famous library here in Buenos Aires, here in the capital of Argentina, the capital city of Argentina where I live. I remember I saw it in a pretty huge, it's kind of like a Colosseum library here, in which you can buy books, a bookshop actually. That is kind of like a Colosseum. It was previously a theater. It's a famous theater. It's the Ateneo Grand Splendid. You can easily find it. It's beautiful. It's probably our most famous book shop, and I saw it there physically, original, with a golden. I remember a golden box. With a golden box, it was like that. That's the first time I saw it. Then I got it. This version, I got this version digitally. I didn't buy that golden box. It was extremely expensive back in the day. So, but I remember seeing it. So yeah, pretty much this game is the one I probably played the most out of all of them. Though it would be a tie with Age of Empires 2 nowadays. Nowadays it would be a tie with this one. These are incredible. Well, and then Age of Empires 4. I analyzed this game on stream. I played the 1.00 version before they nerfed a lot of the things. I actually awarded this game a 9 because I loved all of the mechanics, the presentation, the graphical presentation. I think they solved a lot of. They managed to successfully evolve the formula of Age of Empires. I think they successfully evolved the formula, It needs more content. This game needs more content. But as they update it, I am sure it will end up being a great game. And it is a great game. I analyzed this game on stream. Uh, and I would say it's amazing. I would highly recommend it, even with its flaws. The civilizations are much more asymmetrical. They are much more asymmetrical when compared to the first one and the second one. So you can see how they went from symmetric civilizations, kind of like all of them similar between them. But when they re-released the enhanced editions, they added a lot of different skill trees, for example. But we go from symmetric to completely asymmetric civilizations gradually. But in the definitive versions, they are a bit more asymmetric than the original versions. So that's pretty much the idea. Highly recommended. I liked Age of Empires 4. You can check out my gameplay on the hardest difficulty. I love that this game is also hard. This one is also hard. So yeah. Pretty much. What could I say about the series? The third king of the RTS genre, though the esports scene of this is nowadays thriving. I think it won't get as big as StarCraft 2 for the time being. So StarCraft 2 remains as the king of the multiplayer aspect of RTS games, I guess. Especially, I would say StarCraft 2 in its prime, but well, there you have the three kings. So to start, to open up, the three kings of the RTS genre, the first subgenre that we are going to analyze. It doesn't end there, because we have Age of Mythology. This is not the original version from 2004, 2003. This is the version that Forgotten Empires released around 2019 or something like that, pretty similar to the previous version of Age of Empires 2. So it has some expansions. I think it has a Chinese expansion or something like that. I played the original game as a kid, so I finished all of the Age of Empires games as a kid. Of course, not this one because it was recently released, but Mythology 3, 2, and 1. Yes, I finished them all. So, Age of Mythology, it contains the Titans expansion, something like that. Yes, in this game is amazing because you can also, it has a new resource called kind of like the tribute to the gods. And yeah, you can pretty much command mythological units. It's amazing. It reminds me of Titan Quest as well. Pretty similar. If you like Titan Quest, well, this is the RTS version of Titan Quest. In terms of graphics, in terms of everything, it has a long and pretty well executed story. And it's the easier one. It's easier when compared to the others. It's much easier in my experience. It's much easier. It's an amazing game. Forgotten. And it's amazing. It's made by the team behind Age of Empires. So yeah, there you have it. And restored by the Forgotten Empires team. So yeah. And it has the expansions and everything. There's a Nintendo DS version of this game, and also of Age of Empires 2. They are turn-based games, and they are excellent at for skirmishes. I don't know, on a plane or something like that. I have them, and I have those two games on a pretty high regard, though they are turn-based. They are probably my favorite turn-based games. The Nintendo DS versions of Age of Mythology, especially, which is the best, and the Nintendo DS version of Age of Empires 2. Good work there on THQ, precisely THQ, and Kryptonite Games, another talented developer of the Nintendo DS that I covered in my showcase. But yeah, Age of Mythology, and here one of the jewels of the crown. Yes, people, you must be wondering, why do you have that if the game is dead, if the servers were shut down long ago. This is a game from 2008, if my memory serves me right. This one is from 2005, while the others are yeah. Age of Empires 3 2005, but the expansions lasted all the way to 2009, something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but those are more or less the dates. Age of Empires Online. Why do I have this? Is if the official servers of this game have been shut down. Because this is another reversed engineered version of the original game that can be played completely offline, just like I showcased the MOBAs here that I reversed the MOBAs, the MMORPGs that I reversed engineered on. I showcased them on Tuesday, and I can play them offline in my own offline server that I have locally stored here on my hard drive. This one is much easier, it's much more accessible, you won't have to reverse engineer a whole MMORPG with a long ass tutorial of 1 hour or so. You won't need to do that. This one, the community of the game did everything for you, basically. They've already done everything for you. You just download their client and you'll be able to play it offline. The name of the project is Project Celeste. Project Celeste, like TL in Spanish, precisely. Project Celeste. The whole game is playable. It's just like Diablo 2. You can play online with them. You can play skirmishes online with them. You can play skirmishes online with the community and everything, and the community is running their own servers. You can play it so it's still alive. Or you can play it offline like I do, just enjoying the story mode and everything the original game had to offer, because it has a lot of missions. Though it's called online, it has a lot of offline missions. It's pretty well done. It's extremely cartoony. It's extremely cartoony, so maybe you don't like it because of it, but in terms of gameplay mechanics, it's classic Age of Empires with a 3D engine, pretty well executed. It automatically updates. It's easy to install. You just download the client and it does everything for you, and it updates just like any modern online game. So it's extremely convenient. If you want an easy example of why PC gaming is the best and why reverse engineering games sometimes is easier than the MMORPG games that I do, this is the perfect example. You can play it like Diablo 2, offline or online with the community. This game was developed originally by Gas Powered Games, by Robot Entertainment. Sorry, I said Gas Powered Games because after that part of the team became Robot Entertainment. Also responsible for Orcs Must Die, with Chris Taylor behind them, if I'm not mistaken. With Chris Taylor, one of the last games of Robot Entertainment and Chris Taylor. Just like I mentioned him in the Dungeon Siege, when I mentioned Dungeon Siege and Dungeon Siege here 1 and 2, right here, and as we are gonna do when I get to Supreme Commander here. So yes, pretty much Robot Entertainment, and I highly recommend this game. I highly recommend Age of Empires Online, the Project Celeste version. You'll be able to play it offline, and then if you want, you can play online with the original community that they are still playing it. And Age of Mythology, pretty much an Age of Mythology. These are, I don't know why these are a bit more forgotten, but they are not main entries, but they are pretty amazing spin-offs of the Age of Empires series, and you should also play them. So there we have the 3 kings of the RTS genre up until this point. Arguably another big player of the genre, Command and Conquer. This version has been recently released by Petroglyph. This is a remastered version of it. This would be the fourth king of the genre, but definitely not as huge as the other three. But you'll see, I would consider this one a classic, but not one of the kings. That's the difference. So we also have Command and Conquer Generals, Command and Conquer Generals 0 Hour, the expansion. Command and Conquer 3. There's a mission in here that I played. I've beaten this one on hard difficulty. I still need to, on the hardest difficulty. I still need to play Command and Conquer, this recent remaster that they did of the original game, which was basically unplayable up until recently. Good for Petroglyph. And I need to play those two. I completed this one. I need to play Kane's Wrath. I am pretty intrigued as to what happens after this one. I would say that this one isn't as good as the Kings of the genre, this series. I would place it a bit, just a bit, but a bit below the Kings of the genre, the three Kings of the genre. Command and Conquer Kane's Wrath, Red Alert 3. This one is extremely hated, as I always say. Don't say that you like this game on public unless you want to get publicly stoned or publicly burned. I don't know, violently killed by the community, because this is pretty much the black sheep of the series. Though I still have it because it resembles some MOBA mechanics, which I like, so pretty much that's the idea. Spell Force, just like Dungeon Siege, this is a perfect mix between RTS and RPG. This one, yes, if you like Dungeon Siege, you'll probably like Spell Force, because it's also the perfect marriage between RTS and RPG. So a long-standing series that I need to try. Sadly, I haven't been able to play this series. So yeah, it's extremely good. I've seen these are modded versions of them, so they are ready to be played. This is the Platinum Edition. They are ready to be played on at the highest resolution and frame rates. So yeah, I still need to try this one. Spellforce 2, Spellforce 2 Faith in Destiny, Spellforce 2 Demons of the Past, Spellforce 3. This one is modern and it includes all of the expansions. It's the complete version that they recently released. This one has been released. These are all classic games from 2007, 2008, something like that, if I remember correctly. This one is a bit. These ones are a bit older, but this one is from 2015, something like that. This is modern. This is a modern reincarnation of the Spellforce series. The Stronghold Crusader 2. You can see that I eliminated Stronghold Crusader 1 from the showcase of last year, because basically I had some clipping issues where I played it, but once I played it I uninstalled it because it had some nasty clipping issues with my moving background that you see here, especially with these widgets that you see here. I love these widgets up here, and well, it had a nasty clipping issue. So, well, after that I tried Stronghold Crusader 2 and it was better in every way. And it's the enhanced version, a remastered version. And, well, yeah, pretty much. I decided to keep this one. This one is in 3D. The other one is more like Age of Empires, like old school Age of Empires 2. So it was 2D, so I decided to keep the second one. Because of that nasty clipping issue that it had and I couldn't fix. The other one that I eliminated is Knights of Honor, because it also didn't run correctly. Sadly, it didn't run correctly. and it had a lot of simulation mechanics, which I don't like because have you noticed that a lot of people call strategy games those games in which you have to kind of like create a city, something like Grand Ages Medieval or The Settlers? No, those aren't RTS games. That's not what I like. So these are all classic RTS games for the classic RTS players. In these games, these games basically have base building, manual base building, a mechanic that sadly has been underestimated and forgotten by modern generations. Damn it! I always get sad when I comment this. It's so I feel so miserable whenever I think about base building mechanics in RTS games because they have been either dumbed down or completely discarded. Completely discarded. Pretty much the MOBA genre discarded them to make strategy accessible to most people, which I don't like. Stronghold Crusader 2. This is a game that few people know. Stronghold Legends. I keep this one. And for now, let's say that we are still kind of like in the golden age of the RTS genre. Then we'll get to the obscure period. But well, we are still there. This is a much modern entry, but I have it here because it's a sequel. Here you can see it, for example, this I have it here because it's a sequel, though it's from 2015. But if you see here, Command and Conquer, Age of Empires, Warcraft, Starcraft, they are pretty much the oldest games of the genre, so yeah. Rise of Nations, this one is from 2001, I believe. Well, remember that I said that Warcraft 3 was possibly one of the most difficult RTS games of all time? Well, here I present you the hardest RTS I've ever tried, and that I would arguably say it's the hardest of all time. If you can beat this RTS, the campaign, on the hardest difficulty, which in fact warns you, it tells you you are about to face a tournament level artificial intelligence. A tournament level artificial intelligence at the highest level. In this game, you'll have to reload a lot. You'll get instantly destroyed in a matter of seconds. It's probably the most difficult RTS of all time. I have been unable to beat it. But I managed to beat a lot of the missions of the campaign on the hardest difficulty after a lot of reloading. Of course, after a lot of reloading, basically there's a point in which the game will turn into a reloading simulator. If you liked Age of Empires, you'll probably like this one because part of the development team worked on this. It's pretty similar to Age of Empires. We could say it's a spin-off of Age of Empires with a different name. It was considered Age of Empires 4 for a lot of time before the official one came out some years ago. It's an extremely important game in the history of the RTS genre, though it's sadly forgotten, it's not famous, it's unknown, so contrary to what happened to the other three, you won't hear a lot about this one, but this is the natural succession. It's naturally Age of Empires 4. Play this game on normal difficulty. In this case, you know that for me this is a sacrilege, but in this case I will make an exception, probably the only exception in all of my life. Play this one on normal difficulty, otherwise you will suffer. You will suffer. You will feel a lot of pain, without a doubt, because it's basically unbeatable on the hardest difficulty. And if you manage to do it, it'll probably take you years, because it will be a reloading simulator for you. It'll be a reloading simulator. But nonetheless, one of the most important RTS games of all time as well, Rise of Nations. Rise of Legends, the forgotten sequel, which also includes mythology. one could. I need to. Damn it! I need to create an HD icon, a custom HD cover for these two. This one, no, this one looks a bit better. I like it, but this one I have to change it. This one, yeah, it's also extremely pixelated. I don't like it. I need to find HD covers for those two. To design them. I designed them on my own. Sometimes I manage to find the icon, but in the case of these old games, I generally have to, most of the time, create them on my own. So, Rise of Legends, mythological creatures. As I said, I couldn't finish Rise of Nations. It's brutally hard on the hardest difficulty. Rise of Legends, I assume it will be more or less the same. So, yeah, I fear the day that I'll resume these two games and finish them, I'll probably have to play them on hard difficulty rather than tournament level artificial intelligence, because they are brutal. They are absolutely brutal, and you know how much I hate uh, not playing a game on the hardest difficulty. I basically play all of my games on the hardest difficulty, but these are two exceptions. These are brutally hard. We are talking about Battletoads level of difficulty, so you can imagine. You will need an APM beyond this world to beat this game. So yeah, you'll need to be a pro. What are you gonna do? So yeah, highly recommended though. They have kind of like 5 difficulties, so you can choose exactly what you want. Praetorians. This one I completed it on the hardest difficulty. All of the campaigns, every single one. Challenging, but of course not as brutal as Rise of Nations. I completed it. Hardest difficulty, all of the missions of the campaign, everything. Good game. This one, in this one you command large armies. It's not like Age of Empires. In this one you command large armies. You command kind of like 20 big armies. I believe it was the limit. So here we can see the creation and the huge difference between controlling individual units, like in most of these classic RTS games, and commanding or controlling a squad of units. This is one of the earliest examples of controlling a squad of units rather than individual units, right? So here in this one you command huge Roman legions, and this is a modern HD re-release. So this one I would suggest it if you like Dawn of War, for example. If you like squad-based games that we're going to get to in a minute. So yeah. Here we can see the 2 variations of the RTS genre: squad-based units or individual units. There you can see. The other difference is that the main difference between the RTS genre and the real-time tactics genre that we are gonna see in a moment is that I repeated this 1,000 times probably, is that in the real-time tactics genre there's no base building, and positioning on the battlefield influences the course of the battle. It determines victory. Think about a total war game. Your positioning on the battlefield, if for example a cavalry charge from behind in the Total War series is pretty much lethal, but in Age of Empires you can fend it off. They won't get a bonus. The units won't get a bonus for attacking from a certain direction or something like that. In the case of Praetorians, while the control of the units is a squad-based, which is a real-time tactics element, a real-time tactics rather than real-time strategy element, while you control groups of units, and the base building is next to non-existent. So this one blurs the line between real-time strategy and real-time tactics. It's a still real-time strategy. Why? Because your positioning on the battlefield isn't as influential as in the Total War series, right? It's a rock paper scissors system, and it's based around the rock paper scissors system. Kind of like the archers are good against infantry, the infantry is good against the spearmen, and the spearmen are good against cavalry, something along those lines. So that's why I classified it as a still real-time strategy. Though it has real-time tactics elements, you'll see that I'll make this distinction a lot from now on. Battle Realms, Winter of the Wolf, Liquid Entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. I covered all of the Liquid Entertainment games on stream. We analyzed the 3 of them. Though War of the Ring, I lost a recording because it's the first game I ever streamed, and the sound was horrible, so I had to delete it. And we are gonna re-stream it because it's the last one. You can also check out our interview when I talked with one of the developers of these 3 games, one of the main core developers of Liquid Entertainment. From the bottom of my heart, thanks as always, sir, for the interview that you gave me. And these games are from the last period of the golden age of the RTS genre. From now on, you will see that there will be a decline. Well, it will last for some more years, but you'll see. You'll see. We're talking about 2001. This is a cult game. Winter of the Wolf. It had a pretty interesting flaw, which is kind of like an advanced artificial intelligence that kind of like is a bit independent of your movements, of the player commands, sorry, and it makes it a bit unprecise to control. But then Liquid Entertainment went to the classic Warcraft 3 formula with the Lord of the Rings War of the Ring. Much more classic, much more precise control. It's a classic game. I think my first stream ever is of this game. It's an amazing game. If you liked World of Warcraft, you'll probably love this. You'll see that there's a pattern from now on. This is 2003. We are talking about 2003 here. Praetorians is 2001. Rise of Nations the same. In the case of a Stronghold Crusader 1, it was from 2001, I believe, something like that. It's older than these. But the Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring is much more classic. It's regarded as another cult game. Many would argue the best RTS developed by Liquid Entertainment. The other one, and the one I think is the best, is Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard. Why? Because it brought a lot of innovation. This one is the best classic Liquid Entertainment RTS game. This one is, let's say, the first one and the most unique one. I personally didn't like Winter of the Wolf because of the control as much as I did with Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring. You have all of the analysis in my channel, except for this one, which I had to delete, sadly. But I will do so again. They're fairly challenging, not as much as Warcraft 3, but they are challenging. And here you have Dungeons and Dragons, the Dragon Shard. This one, as I did an exhaustive analysis of this game as well. This one uses quadrants way before Battle for Middle Earth. It uses the quadrants system for the base building. This one uses the classic base building, the individual base building, the classic individual base building of Age of Empires or Warcraft 3. This one uses quadrants and a fixed base upon which you build your base, similar to Battle for Middle-earth. So, yeah, pretty much. And the units are... and you control few units. You control very few units in this case. So, yes, you control very few units that you have to gradually update. So it's a squad-based game in terms of unit controls. So yes, it has those unique elements. Once again, this one blurs the line between the real-time tactics genre and the real-time strategy genre. So yes, it's extremely unique because, as I've said, positioning on the battlefield won't affect your damage, but the control is squad based, and you upgrade those units individually with some upgrades. And another thing that is interesting about this game is that, alongside another one that we're gonna mention soon enough, Armies of Exego, Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard at the same time developed the double layered level design for real-time strategy games. There are only 2 examples that I can think of, if we don't count something like Dungeons 2 and Dungeons 3, because in this case it's applied to the RTS genre, in which you have 2 different layers. You have 2 different layers to play, which is a pretty innovative idea. It was a revolution, I think, back in the day, that was underappreciated. It wasn't properly appreciated. Armies of Exego did the same, and yeah, pretty much it has a lot of unique features, as I've said. If you are looking for something similar to Dawn of War, for example, and especially to the Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 1, 2, or the Rise of the Witch King, this one is pretty similar in terms of gameplay mechanics. Right, so... and the control is extremely smooth. I showcase this game so you can watch it completely on my channel, so yeah. Also, I showcase the other 2, but this one I lost the recall. But you have Battle Realms and Dragon Shard. Lords of EverQuest. I didn't like this one. Probably you didn't know that EverQuest had an RTS game. Besides the MMO, the famous MMORPG. Yes, all of these can be played at modern resolutions, except for the Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring, which is 1080p, I believe. I've got a problem there that it cannot be solved. It can go beyond 1080p. But the Lord of the Ring, the Lords of EverQuest is another example. This is basically similar to Warcraft 3, War of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring, Lords of EverQuest, and then Armies of Exego. They are all like Warcraft 3. Here we can see the influence of Warcraft 3. It was a period of time in which a lot of Warcraft 3, let's say, clones emerged. I wouldn't call them clones because they all have their own unique elements and they should be appreciated individually for what they are. And yes, pretty much I showcased this game on a stream, didn't like it. I played the first campaign and I had to stop because of flawed gameplay mechanics. But well, maybe in the future, I don't know, we can finish it. I don't know. So yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. This game is the favorite game for a lot of people. It's one of the most favorite games, of most favorite RTS games for a lot of people. Lords of EverQuest. I didn't like the game. I was extremely harsh when I analyzed it but a lot of people even so like my analysis. So well, I don't know. Maybe we can finish it someday. Uh, I just couldn't stand it. It's the campaigns are the missions for the campaign are uh, it's hard, but it's hard in a way that you usually either run out of resources or you get attacked, or I don't know. I simply didn't like it, but it's not a bad game at all. It's not a bad game at all. I keep it here because it's a good game. It's a good game that a lot of people love, and while I didn't like it personally completely, it's not a bad game, and I'll have to play it from time to time because it had some interesting things. At least finish the campaign. At least I'll want to. I want to finish the campaign. At least I want to finish the campaign. Ground Control 2. This one I haven't played it. Uh, I've heard pretty good things about it. It's from 2003 as well. The first one is flawed in comparison to this one, according to what I've seen, and it's way too old. But this one runs on modern hardware, and it's also a cult classic. Haven't tried it. I need to do so urgently because it's pretty famous. But I haven't played it, so I cannot say. These are all classic RTS games with base building mechanics, so you can't go wrong with any of these. If you like the genre, you can't go wrong with any of this. All right. Developed by Electronic Arts. Developed by Electronic Arts. While this one isn't a king of the genre, this is probably the most faithful competitor to World of Warcraft. That's the thing. It's probably the most faithful competitor. In order to make this game run properly, you'll have to apply a mod, you'll have to replace the executable, and it will be playable at least at 1080p. However, by doing that, I ended up with a problem, which is the fact that the second campaign disappears from the main menu, so you have to reload a previous saved game. I completed this game on stream. It's one of the first, I think it's the second game I ever showcased on stream. It's one of the most famous RTS games. Long. It has 3 campaigns. If you liked World of Warcraft, you need to play Armies of Exego. It was pretty much the competition. It was released shortly after World of Warcraft, after Warcraft 3. What am I saying? Warcraft 3, not World of Warcraft. So, yeah, pretty much you want to play this game if you played Warcraft 3. There's no excuse. It's pretty much the direct successor, let's say. And it also uses the double layered system. It also uses the double layered system that I also found present in Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard. These are the only 2 games that use it, as far as I can tell from this period of time. So, and they were kind of like developed at the same time, according to what the main co-developer of Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard told me when we talked on stream. When he told me that they developed them at the same time without knowing what the other one was doing. This one was released by Electronic Arts, the other one by Liquid Entertainment. So yeah, Armies of Exego is massive, difficult, pretty similar to Warcraft 3, not as difficult as Warcraft 3 by any stretch. No, but is one of the difficult ones. It's not as brutal as Warcraft 3 or Rise of Nations, but it's difficult. Especially the final level. The final level will be a challenge. But there are some others that some other sections that are pretty tough. They are pretty tough. So yeah, Armies of Exego here, a huge classic game that you also need to play. This one is mandatory. You need to play it if you want to understand the genre. The other one, this one is not a king only because it's not played enough nowadays, because it's not famous enough nowadays. Though in terms of gameplay mechanics, this game is probably one of the best, if not the best squad-based game ever created. Warhammer Dawn of War 1. Here you can see that I created this custom cover for it. Most of these games that I've showcased are modded to be played at least 1080p or even more, or even higher resolutions. But I remember this one is one of the nasty ones, one of the worst cases. Not the base game. The base game is easily playable at 1080p with some mods, but you also have to hex edit the executable. But it's playable at 1080p. It's playable at 1080p there, and this one is the most difficult to make it run at 1080p. This one is the most difficult. Its first expansion, Winter Assault. Yeah, this one you have to hex edit it. You have to do a lot of things. You have to tinker with the configuration, but it's possible. This is one of the most. This is another jewel of my collection, the base game and its expansion, Winter Assault. I completed all of these games except for Soulstorm. I need to complete Soulstorm, but I completed the others. Be careful with Dark Crusade. This is the second expansion. This is the first one, the first expansion, and the third expansion, Soulstorm. Be careful with Dark Crusade and Soulstorm because they're kind of like similar to. This is from a period of time in which the RTS genre, we are now looking at the golden age has passed. After 2003, 2004, we are getting into 2006, 2007, the dark period of the RTS genre. A period of time in which we only had Age of Empires 3, basically. The expansions, not the base game, the expansions. Otherwise it wouldn't be a dark period. Be careful with this one because this one simulates kind of like the conquest mode. If you know the conquest mode, like you have different regions and you play against the artificial intelligence for the control of those regions, kind of like in skirmishes. This one doesn't have a story more than that. It's just a crusade that you simply conquer those territories, like Battlefront 2, like the conquest mode of Battlefront 2, of Star Wars Battlefront 2, just to use a more popular example. But yeah, it was probably created here. I think this is the oldest game that uses the conquest mode, Dark Crusade. This the second expansion. The base game and the Winter Assault expansion, no, they are kind of like normal campaigns. Here you can play as Chaos or Order. You'll have different endings according to what you choose. There's a level that has a nasty bug that hasn't been fixed in this game. That you start without resources, but it's doable. It's totally doable. Dawn of War 1, I think, is the best entry in the series. It's the most solid. It's the most solid and complete story. I love it. I played all of these games. I played Armies of Exego. I played Winter Assault, both Chaos and Order campaigns. I finished the Conquest mode of Dark Crusade with the Space Marines, of course. Then you can play as the Necros. It adds a lot of races, and yeah, pretty much if you hexed it and tinker with the configuration files, you can play these games, all of the Dawn of War games, at 1080p with modern textures and resolutions and everything. So yeah, a great experience. I would highly recommend to anyone to learn to hex edit. It's not that difficult. The executables of these games, and well, yeah, they can. This one can be a bit tough to mod. It's not modding. Actually, it's not modding. It's kind of like um, altering the configuration files beyond what the original developers did with it, what Relic did to with them. So yeah, pretty much these ones are mandatory. Armies of Exego and Dawn of War with all of its expansions, well, at least up until Winter Assault, maybe not Dark Crusade, because it's basically Conquest mode and Soulstorm the same. They are pretty much mandatory. They are the last games of the golden age of the RTS genre. They are pretty much the last games of this golden age that you'll see here. Though I will argue that there are three more series. One of them being the Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 1, 2, and The Rise of the Witch King. This one covers the classic story from the movies. This one covers an alternative different story. New, completely new. And Rise of the Witch King. This one I haven't played it. I played the original too back in the day. I need to replay them. These are all modded, so they can be played at modern resolutions. With the there's a problem with the scaling of the user interface of these games, which I managed to, with mods, you can fix it thanks to the community. I managed to fix them thanks to the community. And then I never played Rise of the Witch King, which I heard is the best, and I need to play it. I need to play Rise of the Witch King. I still need to play it. I need to play Rise of the Witch King, which you basically play, as you can see, with the mounted Witch King of the Lord of the Rings. Pretty amazing. I need to play this third entry in the series. This is extremely forgotten. Few people know about this one. They mostly know about the first one and the second one. So yeah, as you can see, I added custom covers to all of them. So yep, this one is one of the games that I have pending. I need to play this one immediately. Rising Kingdoms, haven't tried it. It's extremely forgotten, but I've heard and seen good things about this game, so I need to try it. As you can see, we are getting into the more obscure period. Empire Earth 2. Another classic that you need to play, from 2005 or something like that. Yeah, 2005. I remember. An incredible game if you played Age of Empires. This one is a modded version by the community. Yes, the community for this game is still alive, just like in Age of Empires Online. The community of this game is still alive. They are still updating the game. The modded version of the game, which is this one. If I click on this, a launcher appears with the updates that the community has done to the game. It's playable offline, it's playable online. Look, you can play it at modern resolutions. So amazing game. It's the best game of the series, without a doubt. The feature of this game, of this legendary franchise, is that it's like Age of Empires, but it has even more emphasis on the age advancement, if you know what I mean. If you play the game or seen footage of the game, this game goes from the Stone Age, but it doesn't end in kind of like the advanced medieval colonial age like Age of Empires. This one goes all the way to futuristic weapons, which is amazing. So you go from caves, from cavemen to robots. Yes, all the way. That's the main feature, the most famous and main feature of this game. In terms of gameplay and pathfinding, it's pretty well done, and it uses the conquest mode system, just like the expansions of the Warhammer Dawn of War series, right? So, good, 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 good. So you have those. You have you have both Empire Earth 2 and the nefarious, the infamous Empire Earth 3. People hate this game. At least the fans of the second entry hate the third entry. Developed by Mad Dog Software, if I'm not mistaken. This one was developed differently. It follows the premise. It has pretty good graphics. You can play it up to 1080p. The other one, thanks to the community updates, it's playable up to 4K. But this one, since the community hates it, they decided not to update it. But well, it's from 2007, so it's a bit more advanced, or 2006, something like that. It's different and much simpler than the other game. The other game has a lot of elements from Age of Empires 2. This one it's its own thing, right? But you can the main gimmick is that you can still go from the Stone Age to a technologically advanced race with robots and those things. As I've said, the community of the second game usually hates the third game, but I have both of them because when I was a kid, the first one that I played was Empire 3, and I relatively recently discovered Empire 2, and objectively it's better. But the first one I played was Empire 3 back in 2006, so great game, great game. It was a pretty amazing period of time. I loved this period of time, though we were getting to the end of the life cycle of RTS games. So every week I would ask for RTS games, and every week there would be less and less. Back in the day, when all of these games were sold physically, and I would ask for them, and yeah, pretty much. It's slow. This is the point, 2006, 2007, in which the genre began to slowly die. The last huge entry, Star Wars Empire at War. Be careful with this one because technically speaking, this game is a mess. It uses a shitty engine, which caps the frame rate at 60 FPS in some occasions to 30 FPS. It will crash a lot of times until you make it run properly with a lot of mods and fixes that you have to apply to this game. As you can see, this genre is dead nowadays. You are looking at a relic of the past. But well, since it's my favorite genre, here I have a perfect preservation of it. As you can see, this HD icon that I found, Empire at War Forces of Corruption, is its expansion. You can play with Mara Jade from the expanded universe of Star Wars with Palpatine. This is amazing. They use the Conquest mode. This is the period of time in which the Conquest mode was dominant in the universe of the RTS genre. The Conquest mode, you can conquer the whole galaxy with all of the planets from the films. These are the most famous games developed by Petroglyph, one of my favorite RTS companies. This is their opus magnus, and yeah, pretty much the RTS genre. This was the last great game of the golden age of the RTS genre. 2006 was pretty much the death. Ancient Wars Sparta, it's a Warcraft 3 clone. They are working on a definitive version of this game, believe it or not, 20 years later or something like that. They are working on that. So, Yeah. There will be a definitive version of this, but it's hated on Steam. Don't ask me why, but I can play the original version. Few people know that it had an expansion, Ancient Wars of Sparta, Fate of Hellas, or it's a sequel. I don't know. I think it's an expansion. The Golden Horde is an expansion of those, and here we have Sparta 2, Alexander the Great. This one is pretty difficult to find. It's one of the most difficult, one of the most forgotten games. The sequel of Ancient Wars of Sparta, extremely forgotten. Extremely forgotten. Almost no one knows about the Golden Horde, the expansion Fate of Hellas, and especially of Sparta 2. Almost no one knows about this obscure sequel. So yeah, we could say that this is after Forces of Corruption, after Empire at War, Forces of Corruption. This is pretty much the death of the genre. These are two very cinematic games. You even have a cinematic camera. If you like Star Wars films, these are pretty much better than Battlegrounds. These are the best. So yeah, they use squad-based gameplay mechanics. So yeah, pretty much. The level design, as I've said, conquest mode in terms of gameplay mechanics, the squad-based gameplay. You can use Imperial Stormtroopers, the Rebels, you can use the ATST, everything. So yeah, pretty much. So well, Ancient Wars. There you have the Ancient Wars series, developed by PlayLogic, the same developers behind Fate 1 that we covered last time, the legendary competitor of Diablo 1. So yeah, pretty much. Paraworld. This one was recommended to me, and I recently discovered it thanks to Prixer, one of the followers of the Twitch channel. So thanks from the bottom of my heart. I always say it when I talk about this game. Thanks Prixer for recommending it. It took me a lot of time to fix this game. Took me a lot of time to fix it. You have to there's a German community behind this game that managed to fix it. And yes, you have to download all of the updates and everything. You have to do everything. You have to apply a lot of mods, and you have to press escape when you open the game, and it will work at 1080p. And it has and the company behind this game developed another one. I need to showcase this one and the sequel. Sadly, this one, the problem is that I have it in Spanish, so I stream in English, so it will be a problem. And besides this one, well, this one I'll tell you the story of this one. I wanted to showcase this one. But I have it in Spanish, and I simply cannot do that. I cannot showcase it in Spanish because no one will understand it. Paraworld, amazing. You play with dinosaurs. I will showcase this one because it's amazing, completely amazing. The German community fixed it. It's a bit difficult to make it run properly. You have to unlock the frame rate. You have to unlock the game engine's frame rate. But if you do it, you'll be able to play it at more than 30 FPS. Paraworld is basically amazing. Haven't played a lot of it, but it uses individual units. It's like Age of Empires. You use your tribe, and the dinosaurs are kind of like the special units, pretty much. Just so you have an idea. I haven't played it, but I played some skirmishes. I haven't completed the story mode, so yeah. So I'm saving this one to showcase it on stream. Another one that I need to showcase. The same studio behind Paraworld, or part of the same studio, developed World Shift. Now, this is the darkest period of the RTS genre, probably, and also the modern day as well. Nowadays, it's also a dark period, but well, at least we got Age of Empires 4. Paraworld and Warshift are probably among the most obscure games. This is the darkest period of time. We are talking about 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. But Warshift is an amazing game. Warshift, it's an amazing game. It's like also Paraworld. They are both amazing. Warshift, it's different. In Paraworld, you control individual dinosaur and caveman units, but in World Shift, it's similar to StarCraft, 3 races, and if you liked Dawn of War, if you liked Warhammer Dawn of War, you'll probably like this one because it's the same. There's no base building, that's the difference. It's completely squad based, so I would venture to say that if you liked Dawn of War 2, you'll like this one, but this one has a skirmish mode. The problem with this game is that it was originally what we call an MMO RTS game. Yes, people, this is one of those few examples. Fortunately, the one that survived, and you must be thinking, how do you have that if the servers closed long ago? Well, this one is probably a top 10 out of all of the games that you see here. Out of all of the games that you see here, this is a top 10 most difficult games to find, to properly make it run on PC. Not because of technical limitations, because you don't need to mod it in terms of what you have to do with Paraworld. Kind of like technically, it runs at unlocked resolutions and frame rates, and it looks amazing. This game does look amazing. I think it has 3 pretty long and well executed campaigns. Why is this an RTS MMO? An MMO or an MMO RTS game? Because originally this was online only, and you were meant to create clans with other players, and kind of like it was a persistent online world. That's why it's called World Shift. That you would try to dominate it with the other clans, and it was amazing. It was a pretty original idea, but well, just like you can imagine, it failed miserably. I think this one was extremely unfair. I would have showcased this game long ago, but I have it in Spanish. There's something with this game that you need to get the English version to play it in English. It's kind of like separated. You have to get the English version to patch it. You have to patch this game, otherwise it's useless. If you download the 1.00 version of it, which is extremely hard to find by itself, it's one of the most difficult pieces of abandonware you will ever find. I could only find it in Spanish. So yes, pretty much I couldn't find the English version, because you have to find the 1.00 English version. Then you have to find the exact 1.01 update, the 1.02 update, the 1.03 update, and the 1.04 update, and the final update on top of those that allows you to play this MMO offline. The developers, at the end of the life cycle of this game, this is a new addition. I didn't showcase this last time in last year's showcase. This is a game that I would love to showcase, but I have it in Spanish. I could translate it live for you, for all of you, but the voices are in Spanish. Everything is in Spanish in this version. It's basically the only version I could find. Not because I had the luck. Let's say that it's my native tongue. So it's my native language. Sorry, my Latin language. My bad. It's my native language. So I can play it without any kind of problem. The voices are pretty well done in Spanish, fortunately. Fortunately, most of the time they are shit, but in this case, this game was the exception. And yes, pretty much, I don't remember the name of the developer, but it was related to Paraworld. That's why you'll see that aesthetically that the graphics are the same. The graphics are the same, pretty much. And it's the same engine and everything. is a natural evolution of Paraworld. In terms of gameplay mechanics, it's easier than Paraworld. It's like Dawn of War. Amazing graphics for the time. The aesthetics of this game and Paraworld are probably the best of most RTS games. I love that aesthetic. And yet, sadly, the only way I could showcase this is in Spanish. Sadly, I would love to showcase it in English, but yeah, that's why I'm not showcasing it. But yeah, if you can find the English version and you painstakingly and perfectly patch it, and you manage to find the final update that the developers release for the game, otherwise the game as a whole is useless. That's why it's so tricky, because it's the update that allows you to basically disconnect from the now dead game servers that no longer exist. So it's the final update basically makes the game playable. Something similar to what recently happened with Marvel Avengers, like that, or with Mythos in the case of Hanabisoft, that they released the final update of a game. This is something that we should be legally imposed to all MMORPGs, that the final update of the game, once they are closing the servers, once they shut down everything, that they won't get any more money from their online play. After that, there should be a legal clause that imposed to anyone who develops an MMORPG that should force them to release a final update that makes the game playable offline, just for the sake of preservation. Just for the sake of preservation, then you force them to store it on the internet archive.com, basically, and yeah, pretty much. Fortunately, Warshift was preserved by the original developers, so good job. Kudos to the developers of the game. Kudos to the developers of Paraworld, which is playable offline, and kudos to the German community that fixed it, because otherwise it's unplayable at 30 FPS. So yeah. This is a new addition that I wanted to highlight from last year's showcase. Right, so extremely important. Extremely important. I managed to preserve World Shift. The problem is that, as I've said, I cannot showcase it in English. You cannot apply the English update to the Spanish version, then it don't works. That's the problem. It needs to be there. They were kind of like separate versions. The French, the Spanish, and the English versions for Europe and the US, pretty much. And they are completely separated with the updates of corresponding to each one of them. Pretty unique. One of the jewels of the crown of my collection. One of the jewels of the crown, alongside my modded World of Warcraft copy, graphically enhanced. And also Age of Empires offline in this case. Certainly the jewels of my collection. Heroes of Annihilated Empires, I analyzed this one on stream. I completely played it. The campaign of this game, this is developed by the Ukrainian studio GSC Game World. They developed the Cossacks series. I don't know if you remember those. As you can see, I eliminated some of the older games because at the end of the day, I think I had Cossacks 2 or something like that. I had to eliminate those because at the end of the day they didn't work properly in terms of frame rate and resolution. See, those are the games that need to be remade, that need modern re-releases, not Resident Evil 4, for example, or Knights of the Old Republic, for example, Cossacks 1, 2. Those are the games that need those. Stronghold Crusader 1, Knights of Honor 1, I don't know, but that one has some simulation elements that I don't like, but well, it's still RTS at some point, so well. Those are the games that truly need to be remastered, if you ask me. Heroes of Annihilated Empires. At this point, we are talking about 3D games. Of course, all of these are 3D RTS games, right? Just so you have an idea. I completely analyzed this on stream. This is a massive game because of the population cap is 500. Massive armies. The game is designed, though it has a critical flaw, and the reason why I awarded it a C is that this game has a critical flaw. It's more like an RPG, like an MMORPG or an isometric action RPG like Diablo, rather than an RTS. At least in its campaign. The campaign is like playing an isometric action RPG game combined with RTS elements. It's extremely focused around the hero unit. Basically, most of the time it's just your hero unit without any kind of base building. There are some base building missions. It's extremely challenging at some points. You can enjoy it. I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's not a bad game. It's good. But as an RTS, in terms of the essence of an RTS, it's not. It's an isometric action RPG. The campaign. It's like Diablo. But then the skirmish mode is the real attraction of this game. It has a pretty long skill tree. The skill tree in this game is probably as deep as an RPG. So yeah. Basically, if you like RPG games mixed with RTS games like Spellforce, Dungeon Siege, and the others that I've mentioned, I think those are the most prominent examples. You'll probably like this one. As a pure RTS, no. The campaign, you'll think that it's like an RPG. Different when compared to an RTS. Except for one or two missions that have base building. For the rest, the game looks gorgeous. It has a gorgeous combination of 2D and 3D graphics, which is unique. Pretty much similar to the Cossacks series, especially Cossacks 3. I would recommend you try it, especially the skirmish mode, but if we're talking about the campaign, if you like it, it'll be for the RPG aspect of it, not the RTS. Right? But yeah, you have my full playthrough of it and my final analysis. I just awarded it a C because as an RTS, it's not an RTS. The campaign, it's an RPG. It looks like an RPG. In terms of the rest, if you play the skirmish mode, it will be amazing because you'll have access to all of the buildings and you'll see the full potential of the gameplay system. Sadly, the campaign wasn't properly designed, in my opinion. Though, well, it has a good story and those things, but in terms of RTS mechanics, no. Supreme Commander, one of the huge pending debts that I have played the game. It's not that I haven't played the game, but I need to thoroughly play it in depth with all of the campaign, with all of the skirmish modes and everything, the conquest mode and everything. The great opus magnus of Chris Taylor and gas powered games. I don't know why that studio stopped releasing games, because it released some of the best games ever as gas powered games or robot entertainment. It's one of the huge studios that I love. Sorry, some of the small studios that should be bigger that I love, to be precise. Just like THQ. THQ gas powered games, for me, they were the pinnacle of PC game development. Sorry, alongside Blizzard, of course. Alongside Blizzard, BioWare, they are the best, but they are the bigger ones. I'm talking about smaller ones. Smaller ones, the best ones, underrated. The most underrated, THQ and gas-powered games. And robot entertainment with Orcs Must Die. It's a miracle that we got Orcs Must Die 3. Please let it be and Orcs Must Die 5, because of the fourth one, or actually the third one, the 2.5 one, is Orcs Must Die Unchained. I have a surprise for all of you regarding that soon, when we reach the tower defense genre. Supreme Commander Forge Alliance, the expansion. Supreme Commander 2, pretty much the best incarnation of the Supreme Commander series. This one also, I think, the Supreme Commander series, the thing is that the main feature is that you are allowed to use, these are pretty different. These are grand scale, planetary scale. We're talking about planetary scale battles. These are extremely symmetric, the races between them. Grand scale battles. It created a different variation of the genre. That's why Supreme Commander is so important. Massive battles of thousands and thousands of units. This formula had two modern incarnations in Ashes of the Singularity and Planetary Annihilation. And Supreme Commander was the original, and also you control kind of like huge, colossal units that are also the key to this game's appeal as well. When you create those super units, the concept of the super unit, they created the concept of the super RTS unit, the super unit in RTS games. Grey Goo also implemented this tactic with a mixed design philosophy between that and StarCraft. So yeah, pretty much we own a lot to the Supreme Commander series, one of the most influential ones of all time. 2006, and pretty much this is a lake of water in the middle of a desert, because this is the darkest period of the RTS genre. We had a Spore, a pretty unique game. I always mention Dark Spore. This one is a pretty interesting case. Be careful, because the base game is extremely broken. I think it works at 30 FPS. So you'll have to unlock the frame rate in a pretty long and arduous process. But once you do, you'll be able to play Spore at unlocked frame rates. You'll be able to play that at unlocked frame rates. And the game is amazing. You go kind of like from a unicellular organism, like from a cell to a civilization. It's not completely an RTS games in the infant stages, when you're basically a molecule, when you're basically a bacteria, I don't know, a small bug, a small DNA fragment, and then you turn into a civilization with your own race. Pretty original game. It's an RTS game. At the end, when you reach the civilization age, it's an RTS game. So pretty amazing and unique. But as I've said, the darkest age of the RTS genre is upon us in this period of time. This one is from, we're talking about 2008. Could it be 2008? World Shift was released in this period of time, but I placed it here because of Paraworld, because it uses the same engine. So yeah, pretty much. You will need to heavily modify this version. You'll need to heavily modify this version, but it's possible. This one is playable at up to 4K. In my case, it's 1440p and unlocked frame rates. I played at, I think it's not unlocked. It's 120 FPS the limit, but well, it's better than 30. I would say, definitely. This game should, without a doubt, it should have been re-released, because the technical state of this game, it's a mess. You have to manually fix it. So yeah, it includes the Galactic Adventures expansion, And when I mention this game, every time I mention this game, I always mention the Forgotten sequel, which belongs to a different genre, which is Dark Spore, which is an isometric gauntlet isometric action RPG, just like Diablo and Fate. It was online only, a great game that I wanted to play for a lot of time, and I couldn't play it back in the day. It's one of those painful memories that I have, not being able to play Darkspore. It's one of the one of the most painful memories, alongside Will Star. But yeah, fortunately, there's since a lot of years, Electronic Arts shut down the servers. They didn't release an offline patch for Darkspore, and basically the game is lost forever. But fortunately, the community is working on a project to revive it. It's not finished. It's one of those projects that I don't know if it will end up being successful. If at the end of the day you will finally be able to play Darkspore. If it happens, I'll be the first person to showcase Darkspore, like with a 100% chance. I'll be among the first people to showcase and explore Darkspore, because I couldn't explore it back in the day. I'm gonna play it to death. I need to check the status, but they only managed to create the server. And they managed to log into the first screen, but then you cannot play it. You can get to the character selection screen, but you cannot play the dungeons. That's the thing. The day Darkspore is revived, it will be a huge achievement for the PC community. It'll be a huge middle finger for Electronic Arts, because killing a game like this, it's a lot of people don't like Electronic Arts because of different reasons, because of the microtransactions and those things. But on top of all of those things, I cannot forgive killing Darkspore without releasing an offline patch for that game. For me, that was a sacrilege beyond any redemption. Darkspore should be alive and thriving right now as an offline game, at least as an offline game. If you want to kill the server, but let people play it as an offline game. Besides, that one was majestic. It was majestic, that game, and I never got to play it. See how sad the story of some of the games, some of those stories are. But well, let's get back to the RTS genre. Halo Wars, up until recently an Xbox 360 exclusive. This is the definitive version. I need to get Halo Wars 2, as you can see. But yeah, I need to get Halo Wars 2. I need to get that one. But yeah, this is the first one, completely playable. The problem with Halo Wars 2 is that it only works on certain versions of Windows. That's the problem. What's the problem with that game? And it's a mess. It uses the universal Windows platform, just like Age of Empires or Recore or I don't know, or Quantum Break did originally. So yeah, pretty much. Halo Wars 2 has that problem, and well, but I'll need to get it eventually. But yeah, this is a squad-based series, pretty simplified. One of the early attempts. We'll see here a lot of attempts in this period of time, a lot of attempts to make RTS games playable on consoles. This was a highly console-dominated era, the era of the Xbox 360, the 7th generation, especially this period of time. We're talking about 2009, for example, heavily console-dominated, and we see how we ended up with a lot of disasters. I think that you can even play Command and Conquer 3 on consoles. Another example is the game that I showcased not long ago, a real-time tactics game called Warhammer Mark of Chaos Battle March. Hell, even Hellgate London precisely had an Xbox 360 release planned for it. That's why you can see the wheel menu. Another example is Tom Clancy and the War, another RTS that they tried to make playable on consoles, and the disgusting um, and brutally butchered Storm Rise by Sega. That game completely. That game was the end of the dreams of porting RTS or real-time tactics games to the Xbox 360. It was pretty much the end of it. It was pretty much the end of it. Storm Rise by Sega is pretty much the last attempt to create an RTS on console. That's a disaster, but well. Another game that I wanted to showcase, Pirates of the Black Code. I'm sure a lot of you played Sid Meier's Pirates. I don't like it. Please try not to kill me. Please try not to kill me. I don't like Sid Meier's Pirates because I like RTS combat mechanics. And pretty much Pirates of the Black Code, this indie release, with its expansion, because this is a gold edition that you see there. I made this custom cover for it. A pretty interesting and forgotten game. Basically, this is Sid Meier's Pirates, in that you control your boat, your ship throughout the Caribbean, and fight for money and glory with other pirates and the British bases all over the Caribbean. Or also Dutch bases, French bases, everything. But this one has something which I personally think makes it better than playing classic Sid Meier's Pirates. What is it? That you can actually disembark. Yes, and once you disembark, you can control your own pirate crew as RTS units. Yes, believe it or not. After playing the game like Sid Meier's Pirates, it's like controlling only your pirate ship, you can disembark, loot, and fight against the local population of the different islands of inside of the map with your own RTS controlled units, your pirate crew, with a rock paper scissors mechanic, right? So that's why I keep this rare gem, this rare forgotten gem. This is a new addition that I didn't showcase last year. This is a new addition, completely new. So yeah, I'm extremely proud of it. Other new additions are the Warcraft 3 Reforged and the StarCraft Mass Recall that you see there. Meridian New World, pretty obscure. It's an indie game. It's not. You'll see that the games here are not relevant in terms of reshaping the history of the RTS genre. Meridian New World, its sequel Meridian Squad 22, Nightside. These are all indie games that managed to keep the genre somehow alive in this darkest hour, in this which is the darkest hour, this dark hour. Nightside. Then we have Grey Goo that I showcased on stream alongside its expansion campaign. This game is extremely flawed. One of the last tries by Petroglyph to revive the RTS genre. This one has modern graphics. This one is like playing StarCraft, basically, combined with the super units and some base building mechanics of Supreme Commander. This one, while the campaign, I heavily criticized it. It has pretty modern cinematics and everything, and low frame rates, amazing graphics, everything. blah 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 blah. The campaign for this game is absolute dog shit. That's the problem. The campaign is absolute dog shit. They failed miserably to create a memorable experience, and that's what made this game fail, in my opinion. Because they focused all of their attention in the multiplayer, which is basically the plague of this genre. The fact that the developers think that the multiplayer section is the only important section of the gameplay, and this is responsible for a lot of flaws that we see nowadays. Another game that you see that I've eliminated is Universe at War, from 2006. I didn't like it. It was the successor of Empire at War, made by Petroglyph, but I didn't like the campaign. I didn't like the conquest system that they tried to implement. I showcased it on stream. You have the complete walkthrough, and that's indeed why I uninstalled it. That's another change. So yeah, I didn't like that one. I didn't like Universe at War at all. I didn't like it at all. It has some positive things, but the rest is simply not good enough. In the case of Great Goo, if I also didn't like it, why do I have it here? Because in terms of the skirmish mode, it's an extremely complete game. The campaign sucks, but the skirmish mode is pretty good. It's like playing StarCraft with slightly different rules and some Supreme Commander gameplay mechanics. So yeah. There's a fourth race. They tried to implement a fourth race, the Goo. So yeah. It has amazing graphics and unique gameplay mechanics for each of the races, but the campaign is they simply focus all of their attention on the multiplayer, and I cannot forgive that. For me, that's a critical flaw. For me, sorry, I'm a traditional player. Campaign comes first, multiplayer comes second. Always. Period. No discussion. On that, is not up for debate. It's not up for debate. Single player first comes first. Multiplayer comes second. If the base of the game is not good, sorry, even if you have the best multiplayer, this is gonna happen what happened to this game. It failed miserably because the online community continued playing StarCraft 2, which is extremely similar to this game. Pretty much that's what's gonna happen. Ethereum, the one that I mentioned on, I think I mentioned this one on Tuesday, and I also highlighted it. Developed by the French studio Focus Home Interactive. This is an extremely shallow, short, and uninspired game. But I love it. You must be wondering, I mean, I don't love it. It's not a great example of an RTS game. But I enjoy it a lot. Why? It tried to do... We are talking about 2015 right now. Great Goo, Ethereum, we are in 2015 currently. Ethereum. Don't ask me why, but it was released the same year as the cryptocurrency was released. Yes. Don't ask me why, it's not related to it. There's one of the races, the consortium, that is brutally OP when compared to the other two. There are only 3 races, like StarCraft. It has few maps, very few maps, and you basically use the conquest mode. They basically use the shallow conquest mode as the campaign that you can easily win without any kind of problem. Why do I like this game? Because this game is elegant. In terms of, it's an extremely shallow game. I don't recommend you play it. I cannot recommend you play it. But I liked it. I cannot lie about it. It's one of those games that you know it's a bad game, but you enjoyed it. This game is polished in terms of graphics, not in terms of frame rate. The soundtrack of this game, I would say, is above average. Is above average, though repetitive. But usually, if it's good and it's repetitive, it'll be considered a good soundtrack. And it's hard. It's more or less hard unless you play with the consortium. The races are extremely asymmetrical. I don't recommend you get this game. I don't recommend you get it, but I recommend you check it. You check it out. It's extremely short, shallow. Get it when it's extremely cheap. I don't know, but as you can see, I took the time to devise a custom cover for it because I'm personally, you would say I'm a fan of this game, even if I know it's not a good game. It's not a good RTS, but I like it. It's one of those weird cases. I designed this custom cover using the official artwork of for the game. What could I tell you about it? It's you have 3 races. One is extremely OP. You have some super units that are pretty well done. The graphics are gorgeous. The graphics are gorgeous, and you cannot control a lot of units. You cannot control a lot of units. It's a squad based, and it's basically maybe if you like MOBAs, you'll probably like this one because there's not a lot of base building. It's similar to Dawn of War in the sense that you have to control the battlefield. The battlefields have different shapes, like tags, like the tag of war shape that we can usually find, and or sand the pyramids or those things. I like it. I like it. It's enjoyable for fast games or fast conquest games. So yeah, it's dead. Of course, the servers are dead, but it's one of the highlights that I would say. I would say don't get it. It's not a good game. It's not a good RTS, but I like it. I like it. I cannot say I don't. I don't like it because I like it and I played it, and I regularly, every now and then, play it at least once a year or every 6 months. I play it because I like it. I like it. I like the style, the art style. I like the art style, the gameplay mechanics. So yeah, pretty much. It's tough, so it's not a walk in the park. So yeah, but extremely short. Use it kind of like as a skirmish simulator. Not anything else. Planetary Annihilation. Be careful because this game, yeah, the developers of this game are basically considered swindlers because they first released the game without an expansion, I believe. More or less that was the story. Without an expansion, and then they re-released the whole game with the expansion, and they forced the original players to pay for the expansion, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, pretty bad people. I don't know if it was a German game or something like that. This one, Planetary Annihilation, because the company was Uber or something like that. And while the developers are indeed swindlers, and that's why you'll see negative reviews of this game on Steam, objectively speaking, if you download the complete version of the game right now without knowing what the story of this game has been, the game is pretty complete. It's one of the modern incarnations of Supreme Commander, and objectively speaking, it looks gorgeous, it plays smoothly, and it's a pretty good game. It's just that you don't go to the Steam forums and say that it's a good game because people will tell you that the developers are swindlers. because of what they did. But well, if you get it nowadays, the game, it's a good game. Objectively speaking, in terms of gameplay mechanics and everything, I haven't completed it, but I can tell you that it's one of the modern incarnations of Supreme Commander, and it's well worth it. With the expansion that they released, the Titans expansion, it's also much better. You can control whole planets with this, just like with Supreme Commander. Grand scale battles, individual units, but grand scale battles like Supreme Commander. You know what I'm talking about. The other modern example of Supreme Commander is Ashes of the Singularity, famously known for implementing DirectX 12, being one of the first games to implement DirectX 12. As you can imagine, this one has amazing graphics, and be careful with, because this one can fry your GPU, because of no console would be able to withstand this game because of the insane amount of units on screen with such detailed textures and so many thousands of units on screen. It's impossible. Not even my 3080 is able to keep up with this game, even with DirectX 12, because of the insane amount of units on screen, the game engine, and pretty much everything. They simply cannot stand. They cannot hold up the insane amount of units on screen. They cannot withstand the memory, the graphical load that this game will impose on your GPU. Be careful with this one. If you get to play this game at 60 FPS, call yourself lucky. If you have a beefy GPU, you can push it to 90 to 100, but be careful. So yeah, it's technically amazing, and it's basically the second modern incarnation of Supreme Commander. The graphical effects also don't help because they are awesome, and in terms of gameplay, it's pretty well executed. If you like Supreme Commander, you'll love this one. Just that the graphical aspect of it will be it's so flashy, and with so many lasers and thousands of units, thousands of units fighting all over a whole planet. So yeah, it'll be a mess. Be careful with the graphical aspect. Amazing game, be careful with that. Cossacks 3, also developed by the Ukrainian studio GSC Game World. After they developed Heroes of Annihilated Empires, they once again developed an entry for the Cossacks franchise. In this case, the third entry of the Cossacks franchise, definitely the best, and the one I suggest. We're talking about 2017, 16, 15, a bit more than it has to be either 15 or 16, something like that, or yeah, more or less like that. And the Cossacks 3 has a beautiful art style. If you liked Heroes of Annihilated Empires, you'll like this one. If you liked the Cossacks series, this is the perfected formula of that version, so there's not much else I could say. This game is amazing, a classic experience. One of the last, let's say, one of the last big RTS games developed from a known franchise, and you'll see that we are still in a pretty dark age. But this one is the exception. 8-Bit Armies, developed by Petroglyph Games, an indie game after the disaster that Grey Goo was. They lost a lot of money, and they had to go ahead and create a much humble. It is a humble RTS. You also have 8-Bit Hordes and 8-Bit Zombies or something like that. But this one is the original game. This one is the original game. It's an RTS. It's playable. It has its own things, but as you can see, they went from almost AAA graphics to completely indie graphics here. But if you like Petroglyph's style, like I do, when they don't fuck up and focus entirely on the multiplayer aspect of the game, you'll probably like this one. You can also get 8-bit hordes and zombies, but this is the main entry. Empires Apart, a modern indie version of Age of Empires. Before the definitive editions of Age of Empires were released, and this was completely forgotten. So yeah, a good spin-off. I would treat it as a spin-off of the franchise. So yeah, pretty much treat it as a spin-off. Consider it an indie spin-off of the Age of Empires franchise. At least we need to be thankful, because this game, for example, kept us playing something similar to Age of Empires until the definitive editions came around. Golem Gates, I need to investigate this one. This is an indie release that I have here because it has some Pikmin mechanics, something like that. I don't remember. Honestly, this is an extremely obscure game, but I remember it was RTS, that's why it's here. It was RTS and you control a lot of units, so that's why I have it here. Extremely obscure. Check out gameplays of it because I don't remember at this point. I have so many games that this might. Forged Battalion, Petroglyph strikes again. Petroglyph strikes again. If there's one thing I admire about Petroglyph, is that they don't give up. They don't give up. Even if they have money, even if they don't have money, they never give up. They keep trying and trying and trying. And I think that's an extremely positive aspect, until they could finally create a pretty good formula here with Command and Conquer. Then they released a lot of failed MOBAs, something like Guardians of Graksha or something like that. I don't know, MOBAs. They tried to feed off the MOBA trend, and they didn't work. They lost a lot of money. Those games were unsuccessful. And after all of that, after 8-bit armies, after Grey Goo, they developed Forged Battalion, which is arguably a much more complete and successful game than 8-bit armies. And well, pretty much part of the legacy of Petroglyph games. Better than 8-bit armies, of course. So I need to play it. I played up until Grey Goo and a bit of 8-bit armies. I need to play this one. Loria, I completed this game on the hardest difficulty. I analyzed this game on stream. I lost a recording because I'm dumb. Basically. Because it was a huge feat, because I completed this game on the hardest difficulty. In case you are wondering, this game was developed by a single person. I was told by another follower of the channel from New Zealand, Morn. If you're watching, I always appreciate our RTS chats. So yeah, pretty much. And he told me that this was developed by a single person, and he talked to him. And yeah, pretty much this is the most faithful, perfect, and modern incarnation of Warcraft 2. What's the problem with this game? It has pathfinding issues, though not as bad as Warcraft 2 originally. It has pathfinding issues, especially in those maps that there are narrow passages rather than open field. It was clearly designed for open field gameplay without a lot of. The pathfinding is is broken in some specific maps. Let's say it has 30 stages, 30 levels, and out of those there are there will be two levels that will be impossible that'll have clipping issues, pathfinding issues. So yeah. But as for the rest, I analyzed this game on stream. I lost the recording. As for the rest, this game is the perfect modern incarnation of Warcraft 2. This game is the modern incarnation of Warcraft 2. Simple. Bluntly and simply the perfect modern incarnation of Warcraft 2. If you liked Warcraft 2, this game was made for you. This game was made for you. On the hardest difficulty, it's brutal, and that's why I respect and admire this game, besides being developed by a single person. But beyond that is the fact that this game is brutally hard. This game is brutally hard, and 99% of the people won't be able to finish it on the hardest difficulty. It uses the classic Blizzard hero system, so yes. If you like Warcraft 2, this is a must play. Extremely challenging, just like it's not as bad as Warcraft 3, but well, you'll have to reload a lot. So yeah, you'll have to have a good APM and good strategies to maneuver through these games. Terrible levels. The main character, Lord Dolt, and the story overall, it's amazing. It's completely amazing. I love the story in this game. I love it. With Lord Dolt and everything. So it's pretty well executed. Amazing. So yeah, highly recommended. I highly recommend you play this. Highly recommended. Ancestors Legacy. This one has much more. This one is 2D, just in case you're wondering. It's just like Warcraft 2 aesthetically as well. Ancestors Legacy. Squad based. This one has pretty modern AA, close to AAA graphics, amazingly designed. It's probably the only modern example of an RTS with a lot of budget up until recently, up until Age of Empires 4 and some others that I'm gonna showcase. We're talking about 2019 in here. We're talking about 2019 if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Then we have War Party. These are the only modern RTS games that are left. War Party. I haven't tried any of these because they are way too modern. I need to finish my backlog. This is like Age of Empires 2, pretty similar to Empires Apart, but this one is even more modern. This one is about cavemen. Bannermen, also a clone of Age of Empires 2, pretty much. Conan Unconquered. I hate this game. Made by Petroglyph as well. I hate it because it's a disaster. It's not an RTS game. It's kind of like a horde simulation. It could even be considered a tower defense game. It blurs the line between tower defense and RTS. But with some of the updates, it has gotten better. At least it doesn't crash, I guess. It's definitely not perfect. It will be a horrible mutation for RTS fans, not recommended. But I have it here. And it's made by Petroglyph, and I have a soft spot for Petroglyph. So even if they fuck up, I think I admire what they do because they never give up. They never give up, and they have survived. They are one of the few companies that have survived the death of the RTS genre. So yeah. A Year of Rain, Warcraft 3 clone, developed by an indie studio, unfinished. People hate it, I guess. People hate it because it's not finished, but the core gameplay mechanics are there. You can play the skirmish mode. You can play it. Has nice graphics. Has a smooth pathfinding. So I have it here. It's a Warcraft 3 clone. Nothing else to add about this one. An indie release. You can see that these are all indie releases at this point. So yeah, Five Nations, also recommended by Morn. Thanks from the bottom of my heart, always Morn, for recommending me this one. This one is like StarCraft 2D. It's like playing StarCraft Brood War. Extremely unknown. I played it 1080p maximum resolution. That's the only problem. But yeah, I would recommend this one. Except it's not damned down like some other examples here. And yeah, if you like StarCraft, I can recommend this one. This one was recommended to me by another follower of the channel, of the Twitch channel, 2 years ago, and yes, I liked it. It's a solid game, so yeah, highly recommend you get it, because there are no modern entries in the RTS genre. However, last year, there was another glimmer of hope alongside Age of Empires 4. A glimmer of hope. Whoa, ladies and gentlemen. You know that I've ranted because of the death of the RTS genre a lot, how there are no modern games at all. This is the one game alongside Age of Empires 4 that gives me hope that in the future this genre will be completely reborn. It uses a legendary franchise. There's a movie, Starship Troopers, pretty similar to the one StarCraft got the inspiration from. Starship Troopers, there's a movie from the 90s. And I wasn't expecting this one. Whoa. This game for me represents hope. This one and the next one that I'm gonna showcase, but this one, it has good graphics, it has smooth gameplay mechanics. I haven't played it completely, but this one is the first, let's say, AAA, close. It's a AA, but it's close to AAA. Considering the genre is dead, we could say it's a AAA, relatively speaking. It's the first AAA release of the RTS genre in a long time. If we do this, we could argue that the previous one has been Cossacks 3, or I don't know, Ashes of the Singularity, or well, not Planter, or Grey Goo, I don't know. And even so, if we need to get back in time, we would say Supreme Commander is the one from a known developer. It's the last AAA known release from a known developer. Starship Troopers Rank Command. Please, RTS fans, play this instead of playing multiplayer StarCraft 2 all day. Give the genre the opportunity to create new franchises so it won't be dead anymore. Play Starship Troopers The Run Command, play the campaign, explore everything this game has to offer people, because it's something important for the history of this genre. It could be the turning point alongside Age of Empires 4. Age of Empires 4 could have been the turning point, but this one is kind of like the follow-up to that turning point. Age of Empires 4 and this game, Starship Troopers The Run Command. It's important that I stop here and tell you that this is the first AAA RTS release in a long time. Do you want to call it AA instead of AAA? Because nowadays we are used to first-person shooter graphics with everything. Do so, but for the RTS genre, this game is AAA. Consider that we are coming from this. Never forget that. And the other one, Crossfire Legion. This one, but there wouldn't be a Crossfire Legion without this one. Crossfire Legion, and there wouldn't be this one without Age of Empires 4. Age of Empires 4, that's why I admire it so much, though it's not the best game by all means, objectively speaking. Is the one that spawned a new small generation of RTS games. It's not a generation yet, there's few of them. But remember, Homeworld 3 is in development, supposedly. Let's see what 2K, what they do. They are pretty fishy. They are pretty dangerous. They are like Electronic Arts. So let's see what they do with the legendary Homeworld franchise. But alongside Age of Empires 4, Starship Troopers Terran Command, Crossfire Legion, and last but not least, the Valiant. But these two especially, Crossfire Legion and Starship Troopers Terran Command, alongside Age of Empires 4, have managed to return a bit of hope for a future with more RTS games. This genre has sadly been forgotten, but we've got these 3 examples of properly developed and properly released RTS games. Age of Empires 4 isn't as good as Age of Empires 2. No, it's not as good, definitely. But it's a valiant effort made by Relic when they were coming from the failure of Dawn of War 3. Pretty well executed. Pretty well executed. I'll defend those games to death. Crossfire Legion, Starship Troopers Terran Command, and there are 2 studios responsible for the future of the RTS genre, for the whole genre. Uncapped Games and Frost Giant Games. I think one of them developed this one. I believe Crossfire Legion, if not I'm wrong, and they are developing their own games. But it basically will be a fight around those developers. Uncapped Games and Frost Giant Games. All of those 2 studios are backed by the most talented Blizzard veterans of the industry. So you get the idea. The Valiant as well, the latest release. I like it that they are pushing the graphics from indie. Here you can see the trend. Here we can see that the RTS genre was demoted to an indie genre. Here you can see it. It was an indie genre up until recently. And now it at least went back to being a AA genre. In the case of Age of Empires 4, AAA, without a doubt. To a AA, AAA genre. And let's pray for Uncapped Games and Frost Giant Games that they released good AA and AAA RTS games. But the future is a tiny bit brighter than 2 years ago when I was complaining. It's a bit brighter. It's been dead up until recently. The Dark Holes destroyed everything, as you can see. I've documented pretty much every single... There's Age of Elysium. There's another game that I uninstalled, for example. But you can see that this is pretty much a complete genre. I'm not missing any game. Any modern RTS game. And they are all indie here, in this last section. You can see that this is a dark period of time. From 2009, 2010 here onwards. Here you can see a dark period of time. And now, finally, we're going back to AA RTS games, right? Homeworld Remastered Collection. This is actually Homeworld 1 and 2. Homeworld Deserts of Karak, an expansion that they recently released. This one doesn't use... why do I have this here if it's an older game? Because these are space RTS games. They are in space, kind of like in 3 dimensions. Pretty interesting. You have to kind of like control if your ships attack from above or from below. This one, no. This one is a classic RTS game. Scenes of a Solar Empire, pretty famous game. Highly recommended. The Rebellion expansion and everything. It had a lot of expansions. Be careful with that. It had a lot of expansions. Be sure to get the most modern version. Extremely forgotten. Ancient Space from 2016 or something. It's an indie game that tried to resemble Sins of the Solar Empire. Highly recommended as well. Highly, all of these games, these last space games, are AA, AAA quality. They are the only space. The space RTS genre, sub-genre, is a variation, just like the squad-based variation of, for example, Ancestor's Legacy, that you don't control individual units. In these ones, you control, generally, you control groups of ships, and you fight in space. If you like Ender's Game, for example, my favorite science fiction book, you'll love these because you control your ships and you fight in space. Focus Home Interactive once again, people. That's why I told you it's an important studio. This AA French studio developed Battlefleet, Gothic Armada 1 and 2, pretty much the epitome of this genre, using the Warhammer license. 10 out of 10 for both games. Amazing, amazing. The graphics, everything. This could have been arguably, would have been my game of the year, Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. Arguably. Strategy game of the year, without a doubt. I don't know what other games were released, but this was, I remember it was pretty high in my top. I don't know why the icon of the first game has pixel perfect proportions, and this one is kind of like blurry. Don't ask me. I need to find an HD icon for the second one, ironically. Ancient Space, Sins of the Solar Empire, Homeworld Deserts of Karak, Homeworld Remastered Collection, Homeworld 1 and 2, Homeworld 3 is still in development. Thanks to K for saying nothing, as you can see. Well, and these last games, as you can see, they are the RTS space genre. It's a variation of the RTS genre. So we have two variations here, as you can see. Let's recap. Classic RTS games with pretty much individual unit control, the classic kings of the genre, StarCraft, Warcraft, and Age of Empires. Then we have squad-based RTS games that are the middle term between the real-time tactics genre that we are going to get to in a second, in a matter of minutes, and the RTS genre, like you control groups of units, but still the second condition, which is positioning on the battlefield influences the course of the battle, is still not present here. For example, in Dawn of War, yes, you can take cover, you can somehow take cover in some of the debris or those things, but it's not a defining element of the gameplay mechanics. And there's a still base building. In all of these games, 99% of the time there is base building, even if it's shallow, even if it's next to non-existent, there is base building. I'm teaching you how to tell the difference between an RTS and a real-time tactics game. Between real-time strategy and real-time tactics. In real-time tactics, there's no base building, and positioning on the battlefield is everything. It matters more than APM and unit production, like in RTS games. That's mainly the thing. So yeah, pretty much. Okay. Next genre. After a lot of years, the RTS genre, as you could see, was and is up until now dead, basically. It has been dead for a lot of years. It is now somehow reviving a bit, not what it should be. The decline of the RTS genre was mainly caused due to the high learning curve for most of the players. Sadly, the nature of most human beings is to not learn about gameplay, of complicated gameplay mechanics. They want brain dead mechanics, sadly. Base building was deemed as the main reason behind the failure of the RTS genre, and that extreme competitive scene of StarCraft 2 that basically killed everything. And yeah, pretty much the RTS genre declined, but ironically, the legacy of Warcraft 3 survived even the most obscure and darkest ages of this apocalypse, of this collapse, kind of like when the Western Roman Empire collapsed. Warcraft 3 somehow created a gameplay system, an isolated gameplay system that has been able to survive, thrive, and carry the torch of the RTS genre up until nowadays. Sadly, it eliminated base building in the process, deemed unneeded by MOBA players. Sadly, an extremely sad story, because it reflects the flaws of human nature. It reflects the flaws of human nature, because when they didn't like base building, instead of learning how to play it, most of the casual player base, instead of learning how to properly organize your base building and everything, they said, no, we don't need that. They deemed it as unneeded, and the MOBAs became popular. The MOBA genre. With time, I learned to appreciate it for what it is, but we cannot forget the fact that this genre is responsible for killing the whole RTS genre. Arguably, the RTS genre was already dead by the time this came, but it's kind of like the last nail in the coffin. It's kind of like the one responsible for completely beheading the RTS genre for a lot of time. Fortunately, nowadays we have these valiant efforts that fortunately will bring balance to this troubled genre that is a strategy, and in this case to the real-time strategy genre. Thanks Age of Empires, thanks Starship Troopers, and thanks to Crossfire Legion, essentially, and thanks to the ones that kept it alive, like Grey Goo, like Petroglyph, of course, always. GSC Game World. Sadly, I don't think we'll see another game from them. Sadly, because of the worldwide situation. Sadly, they're working on Stalker 2. I believe they are working on Stalker 2, and I think that will give them a much more money. Besides, they have Microsoft behind them. They are better doing that than Cossacks 4, to be honest, sadly. But well. With time, I learned to appreciate the MOBA genre for what it is. However, there's something that I cannot forgive, besides everything that I've said, which is the fact that this genre is meant to be always online. So, for a lot of years I tried to preserve them, because even if they kill the RTS genre, in their own right, they are part of the RTS. They are part of the real-time strategy genre. So they are like those brothers that we are always fighting with. Not my case, because I'm an only child, but I understand the analogy. I at least try to understand it. That brothers are always fighting against each other, but then when they grow up, generally what should happen is that they understand each other, generally speaking, in this case. And well, that's what happens between the RTS and the MOBA genre. I am clearly part of the RTS section, but I also I learned to appreciate the MOBA genre. Now, they are online only. That I cannot forgive. The online only aspect of it. You know what I think of that. It should be illegal. I think it should be illegal. Releasing an online only game, it should be illegal, just like um, giving you uh, something that you don't have complete ownership of should be illegal. I understand that as people, while people buy these games or spend money on these games, they will continue selling, but it should be illegal. Objectively speaking, they should be like Diablo 2, offline and online. If you want to play online, play online. Demigod. This one is offline, developed by Gas Powered Games, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Taylor was behind this one, and ironically, this one is probably the OG MOBA, except for Defense of the Ancients, of course, except for the classic mod of Warcraft 3, right? But that's a mod. It still wasn't independent. That's the thing. It still wasn't independent. So the first MOBA, independent MOBA, technically is this one. Defense of the Ancients 1. It's the mod from Warcraft 3, but it's not independent. It's not a standalone game. It's a mod of Warcraft 3, right? So, and there was even a more obscure case. There's a mod for StarCraft 1 Brood War that was also kind of like a MOBA, but the one that popularized it is Defense of the Ancients 1, that you can play in Warcraft 3, which is a mod. Demigod was the first independent modern MOBA, so props and kudos to Chris Taylor for once again contributing to the gaming industry. You can see that why I like so much gas-powered games. Sadly, they are no longer among us, but see how they contributed to a lot of the aspects. They grabbed, as you can see there, the aspect of Supreme Commander, the Titans, and they implemented it in a MOBA game. You can play this one completely offline. It's portable. It's amazing. It has good graphics. An incredible MOBA game. It's not fully a MOBA like we know them today. Kind of like in, I think it has several modes and everything. But you can play it offline. It's not meant to be played online. It's offline focused and amazing. In terms of gameplay mechanics, yes, it's like a modern MOBA. Just the camera, maybe it's a bit different and those things. I need to showcase this one. In fact, I'll showcase all of the MOBA games. This is my idea. Because you'll see that all of my MOBAs are reverse engineered to be playable, portable, and offline. Just like the MMORPG games. So these are the jewels of my crown. Of my collection once again. These are the jewels of the collection. Of the crown that is my collection, let's say. These are the jewels. Demigod, MOBA All-Stars Legend. This is a mod of Heroes of New Earth S2 games that I covered the story in one of the Hellgate London streams. S2 games was closed recently, and the service for Heroes of New Earth. Basically, Heroes of New Earth was also one of the pre-League of Legends MOBAs. And MOBA All-Stars Legends is playable offline completely with modified characters from all MOBAs, from Defense of the Ancients 2, from Dota 2, from Heroes of the Storm, from League of Legends, with the old school. Why do I keep this one? Because it's the old school client of Heroes of New Earth with different heroes from all MOBAs. It's kind of like a party in which you can play with all of the heroes of your favorite MOBAs. So I keep this modded version of Heroes of New Earth here. All of the MOBAs that I'm going to showcase, they are all playable against the artificial intelligence. On the highest difficulty, completely playable offline, and they are portable, the files for them. I took the time to do that. Heroes of New Earth. Now, you must be wondering, how are you able to play this game if the servers have been shut down? This is the modern client of Heroes of New Earth that has been recently released by the community. The community has online servers up for it. And this one is a unique mix, because the official mod made by the community is only playable online. However, this is a unique version. You won't see it anywhere else probably in the planet. It's a reverse, because you have to apply a second extremely unknown mod on top of the community patched online mod for Heroes of New Earth. So if you apply, it's similar to what I did with Hellgate London, that I can play it offline and online. Heroes of New Earth, the servers were closed. I need to tell you the story of S2 games pretty briefly, but first, Heroes of New Earth. If you apply a second offline mod on top of the online mod that the community recently released when S2 Games closed the servers forever, when they were all shut down forever, the company also ceased to exist. When they did all of that, this is one of the oldest MOBAs ever created. The community developed their own servers to continue playing. You can do that. I suggest you just download the client and play the online version. This one is a unique version, what I have here. It allows me to play offline, but with all of the improvements and all of the modern perks of the online mod that the community developed for the game. So yes, I'm going to showcase this unique version soon enough. I'm going to showcase it because we are going to do the offline MOBA showcase, but I am recovering some ignorant comments first to spotlight before we begin, because as most people know, MOBAs are not playable online. I'm going to finally debunk that myth once and for all, just like MMORPGs are playable offline. Why am I trying to debunk this myth? And why am I doing this preservation effort? First of all, to preserve the games, of course, because they are important and they're part of the RTS history. But second of all, to prove that game companies are all the time releasing online games that could be like Diablo 2, that could be kind of like offline and online at the same time, and they release them online only to get more money and to piss off the players, because they don't care, because the investors tell them to be online only so they can buy more skins and do things and blah 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 blah, and more money, and they should be offline and online at the same time. Can easily be done, and so when people say you cannot play that game offline, yeah, you can. It's just that you need to connect the client with the actions of your characters. They kind of like split the game into the actions of your character. The problem is how much they split it. If they split all of the actions, all of the how the game behaves completely, that's usually the case with MMORPG games, it's much more difficult. It's much more difficult to reverse engineer them. These are all reverse engineered versions of MMORPGs and MOBAs, and I'll prove that you can play all of these offline. I'm not gonna tell you how. I'm not gonna tell you how to do it, because I cannot do that, because I can get my channel completely banned. I'm just gonna open them and play them. I'm just gonna open them and offline showcase how to play. That's pretty much it. That's the idea. Heroes of New Earth. This is a unique version, as I've said. S2 Games has closed, the community created the servers, and in the case of MOBAs, those actions that I've said that they split into, they split the actions of your character and everything, all of the behavior of the game, the spawns and everything, they split it from the client. They split the database and the client, and they do that. In the case of MOBAs, it's much easier to reverse engineer them than MMORPGs. What is difficult is to find the files. The difficulty lies in finding the correct files. It's difficult to find the files to reverse engineer them. In the case of MMORPGs, it's also extremely difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. I would say that a lot of these games that you see here nowadays, you won't find the files to reverse engineer them. It's because I'm paying a lot of attention all the time to these things, and kind of like when they get released, I run and I get them. Then they are eliminated from the internet. Heroes of New Earth. In the case of this one, as I've said, I installed an offline. It's a method that is you won't find it online because I didn't use any tutorials. I had to deduce. I had to deduce how to combine both versions. The modern installation of the community developed client of Heroes of New Earth with this offline mod that was also released after the main game closed, after the official game closed, and I don't think it's anywhere on the internet. I had to do it myself. So yes, this is Heroes of New Earth, completely playable offline. The story of this game, why it closed, is because the community was so toxic. If you think League of Legends was toxic, this is kind of like 100 times more toxic. Kind of like, yeah. Even the creator of this game played its own game in a pretty savage behavior. So this game is probably the most savage game of all time in terms of community. At least the official one from years ago. Nowadays, it's much more normal. Want to believe it? You can download the client and play the online servers. So there you'll discover it. You'll find out. But this was for a lot of years the most savage online community that has ever seen the light of day. Kind of like the most savage that you can ever imagine. Imagine if you have the creator of the game being much more savage than the player base, what can you expect? But well, name calling, savage. Imagine a horde of gorillas kill. I played the beta and release of Heroes of New Earth. Hello, no batched. Was so much fun. Yeah. I get you were part of the original player base. Damn it, was it as savage as people used to say? I had a talk last year in my Discord with the developer of Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard. It was absolutely savage, and he said that the game was nasty and savage. Indeed, but that was part of the fun. Yeah, without a doubt. I remember that the very creator of this one, he also played the game, if I'm not mistaken. And he was one of the most savage players. The very creator over at S2 Games. I don't remember the name. If you know it, tell me, but I remember. There are a lot of documentaries. Sadly, S2 Games, as I was saying, closed recently. But you can play the community servers. The community managed to keep them alive. And I have here a unique version. I'm a preserver of games, as you can see. I preserve games, and once a year I do this collection showcase that I do with the new additions, and this is one of the new additions. I managed to preserve a completely offline version of Heroes of New Earth, and yes, it's unique. It's completely unique, this version, because I mixed the community mod with an offline mod, and it's playable completely offline. That's awesome. Yes, that's why in a couple of weeks or days I'm going to showcase the complete all of these MOBAs, I have preserved them completely offline. They are all playable portable offline, for example, on a plane, or if you, I don't know, if you have to take a trip somewhere, all of these I can carry them with me. I just copy them to an external hard drive, I insert it in a laptop, and I can play them. That's the thing. It's difficult to find the files for all of these, but after a lot of searching, I managed to do it. So yes, it's an absolute honor meeting one of the original players of this legendary MOBA. This is pre-League of Legends, consider, for anyone else watching this as a YouTube pod. This is previous to League of Legends, and yes, the original legendary MOBA, perfectly preserved, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, here we have. Remember the story that I told you at the beginning of the stream. When Blizzard sadly didn't believe in the MOBA genre, they forgot to preserve the license of Defense of the Ancients. They forgot. Yup, I remember thinking League of Legends was dumb and everyone should just play Heroes of New Earth. I think exactly the same. I played this game, I didn't play it at launch, but with this preserved offline version I played it, and I think it's superior in terms of smooth gameplay mechanics and everything, not only the gameplay mechanics. How smooth it works, first of all, the game engine is the same from that forgotten game that S2 Games developed. Savage Resurrection is the latest entry, but Savage 1 and 2, it used the same engine, if I'm not mistaken. And the engine S2 Games used for Savage was extremely smooth. This game has unlocked frame rates, and it was released back in, I think it helped League, that it was free to play and Heroes of New Earth was a purchase. Yes, it had that problem, let's say, that it was kind of like the dawn of the RTS genre. It was pretty much the dawn of the RTS genre, and developers were adapting from the RTS genre to, sorry, the dawn of the MOBA genre, and developers were adapting from the RTS genre that they were used from simply forever, since the dawn of time, and they were adapting. And the fact that it's true, that's a great detail, that you had to purchase the game, kind of like normally, like you would purchase an RTS game, like Age of Empires 3, for example, just to use a contemporary example to this one. But yeah, it defined, first of all, the gameplay mechanics a lot. It defined the gameplay mechanics. I would say Heroes of New Earth, and also, of course, Defense of the Ancients 1, the mod of Warcraft 3. When Blizzard forgot to sustain the license, they simply let it sleep. They thought it wouldn't be the future of the RTS genre, and Bulb got the license for Defense of the Ancients 2. But yeah, it's true. Heroes of New Earth and Defense of the Ancients 1 were responsible for the creation, for what League of Legends is nowadays. Probably one of the biggest gaming franchises, multi-billion-dollar franchise, and with the Arcane series and everything, but it wouldn't be what it is without these are basically the origins. So when Blizzard lost the license, Valve was fast as lightning and got the license to develop Defense of the Ancients 2. So what started as a mod and the birth of the MOBA genre turned into this one. What's this preserved version that I have here? What's the difference between this preserved version and the normal Defense of the Ancients? First of all, this one is completely playable offline, portable, as I've been telling you about the rest of the MOBAs that we've been exploring. But not only that, on top of being completely playable offline, Defense of the Ancients 2, and being portable, you can take this, I don't know, on a plane or anything else. This one has the improved AI, the ranked matchmaking artificial intelligence, which is much better than the base artificial intelligence that Vol.2 put in Defense of the Ancients, pretty much. Thanks to that improved artificial intelligence, this offline portable version of Defense of the Ancients 2, of Dota 2, is completely enjoyable against bots, ladies and gentlemen. That's the thing. Absolutely amazing that you can take with you a perfectly offline version of Defense of the Ancients. In the future, as I've said, I will, because I cannot showcase them since we are going to cover RTS and real-time tactics today. But then, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to open each one of them. There's not a lot of them, and showcase one match, just one match per game, to finally debunk the myth that MOBAs are only playable online. Yes, it's the normal and natural way to play them, but you can have these amazing portable versions. With the improved matchmaking artificial intelligence, Defense of the Ancients 2, it's an amazing experience. The bots are intelligent, they will gang up on you, they will kill you without you realizing it. It's extremely good. Of course, if you're a professional of Defense of the Ancients 2, you will be able to win, but there's also the handicap of the fact that maybe your own companions, your own teammates, your own artificial intelligence, they are dumb and you'll have to carry them a bit. But with this mod, everything is much more natural. Everything is much more natural, so I need to showcase it. It took me a lot of time to implement the ranked matchmaking artificial intelligence on this offline version, but it's possible to do it, and with a pretty updated version of Defense of the Ancients 2. So you'll have everything, all of the characters unlocked. So it's also good for practice for people who would like to play the game online. Strife. Also developed by S2 Games, and the reason why this one is playable offline. I remember that here, fortunately, I had an advantage. Remember, I was mentioning that it's difficult to get the files for all of these games, to reverse engineer them and make them playable offline. Here we have an advantage. I don't know for how much more time, because it will be eventually removed. That's why I've been highly suggesting that you download the Steam version of Strife whenever I talked about it. As long as we are able to download the Steam version of this game, this is the last game developed by S2 Games after Heroes of New Earth. It was kind of like their swan song. It's also a MOBA with pretty modern graphics, pretty similar to Heroes of New Earth. If you liked Heroes of New Earth, you'll probably like this one. Pretty similar, better graphics. Their swan song, the last silver bullet they had to succeed at this competitive market. Fortunately, as I said, the Steam version is still downloadable. Whenever the Steam version is removed, this version will be lost forever. Yes, because you need the Steam version of this game. It's completely free. The servers are dead, so it's unplayable. But if you install a launcher developed by the community, you can still play it offline against the bots. The artificial intelligence will be kind of like not as good as the ranked matchmaking artificial intelligence of the mod present in Dota 2. or like the original Heroes of New Earth, but you'll be able to play the swan song. I play these games as part of gaming history more than anything. The last swan song of S2 games. Interesting. And this one is important, because without this game, we would have never had the next game that I'm going to showcase, because it influenced a lot of the gameplay mechanics. But yeah, basically Strife, if you liked Heroes of New Earth, definitely I would highly recommend to immediately download the Steam version of this, because once that is removed, this game will be unplayable, because the servers are shut down, ladies and gentlemen. That's the thing. You can no longer download the client. You cannot download anything. But the Steam version has the base files required for the launcher, for the mod developed by the community. It's a launcher. It's just a launcher that allows you to get into the game and launch an offline match against the artificial intelligence. So grab it as fast as you can. It's just 2 gigabytes. And once it's removed, the game is lost forever, because the launcher won't be able to access the base game files, and thus you won't be able to play it offline, reverse engineer. Right? You won't be able to reverse engineer it without the base game files, and they're only available over at Steam. A pretty important piece of information that almost no one knows about. It's pretty much forgotten. Fortunately, Heroes of New Earth is alive thanks to the community. You can play on the servers online, just like Novach just mentioned here. MOBA All-Stars Legends, if you want to play a combination of all other MOBAs with the old school engine of Heroes of New Earth, a great example. So you have there the 3 reversed engineered S2 games MOBAs. I'll showcase them eventually once I finish the showcase for the complete 2023 collection of game genres. Right, remember I said that Strife heavily influenced another game. This is the jewel of the crown, and my most important discovery this year. This is not present in last year's collection. Yes, believe it or not, and I have this here because this is the MOBA that I played the most. Heroes of the Storm. I played on the online servers and everything for a lot of time, just like the others. But this one I played it a lot, competitively and those things. But yes, believe it or not, I have this here because I have a hunch that soon it will go offline and it will be lost forever, and you won't be able to play it because it's a MOBA game. But believe it or not, this is a playable offline version of Heroes of the Storm. I had to dig for months upon months to get the files, the proper files. But yes, this is a completely offline version of Heroes of the Storm, not of the most updated build, of course. It's the alpha build, but it's not broken. It was pretty much finished by then, so it's technically close to 1.0. It's basically 1.0. This is completely playable offline. It took me months to get the files. The files are mostly confined in Korean servers. Those were the only ones that kept backups of these files. But yes, Heroes of the Storm, the alpha version, which is close to 1.0, is playable offline. This will be one of the first that I'm going to showcase once we do the offline MOBA showcase. It's important because in terms of the history of the MOBA genre, this is kind of like the late attempt of Blizzard to recover the crown that Vol.2 stole from them, right? With Defense of the Ancients 2. But it follows a lot of the mechanics present in Strife. They definitely looked at Strife, contrary to what most people believe. People believe that Heroes of the Storm was a copy of Defense of the Ancient because of the hate that Blizzard had back then for Vol.2 because of what they did. But yes, it's important because it has all of the Blizzard heroes and everything, and there's hardly any footage online of this version. Hardly any footage. And all of the footage that there is, it's outdated, and you won't see any of the methods or anything like that. Basically, it works exactly like Strife. It uses a launcher to basically allow you to play the game offline, to launch a match offline without your your Battle.net account or anything like that. This will be extremely important. Why? Because in the future, when this game goes offline, this alpha version will probably be the only way to revive the game, and it has a player base, just like Heroes of New Earth. It will be the only one, and this one will be much harder to revive because the game files are extremely hard-coded and compressed. But if someone keeps a client of the most updated version of Heroes of the Storm before it shuts down, technically, with this offline method, they can somehow improve it to make it launch more than the alpha version, potentially. Let's hope for the future that we can do that after it shuts down, which I personally believe will be soon enough, because this game has exhausted all of its power, just like when a star explodes like a supernova. It's pretty much the same. It has exhausted most of its lifetime, of its life cycle. But yeah, basically I will do an offline MOBA showcase, showcasing that all of these were at some point playable offline, and that you can reverse engineer them. Because it's sad that they've been all shut down. Guardians of Middle-earth. This was a console MOBA, a pretty obscure console MOBA developed for I think it's on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. This one is naturally playable offline, pretty similar to Demigod. The servers, of course, have been shut down. All of these games, except for Defense of the Ancients, the servers have been shut down. The official servers, in the case of Heroes of New Earth, there's the community servers. Guardians of Middle-earth was always playable offline, but what's interesting about this version is that contrary to the console variants, contrary to the console versions of this one has unlocked frame rates, and you can basically use the characters of the Lord of the Rings. This one, I would also say that you can play it with a controller. I know, a sacrilege, absolute sacrilege for this genre. But well, in the case of this one, you can play with mouse and keyboard, and it's playable. It has pretty nice graphics. It's one of the late MOBAs. I think it's 2012, 2011, something like that, if I'm not mistaken, just using my memory. But yeah, another great example of the jewels of my MOBA section, the MOBA section of my collection. These are pretty weird, especially the ones that I said. Getting the files for Heroes of the Storm offline, Strife, is particularly hard, as well as what I said, the combination method for Heroes of New Earth. Otherwise, you can play on the online servers of the community that they developed. Blood Sports TV. This is from a Swedish studio, mostly known for the famous release of Warhammer Vermintide 1 and 2, Fat Shark, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Swedish studio, and this is a mix. And it's a great example of... It's a mix between tower defense and MOBA. You control a hero unit, just like you would do in any MOBA game, but it has tower defense mechanics and survival mechanics, kind of like fighting hordes and hordes of enemies. This one is definitely the only other example of a MOBA which is oriented to the single player content. Pretty unique. That's why I have it here. I think it's on Steam nowadays if they haven't removed it. But I remember it was pretty difficult to find back in the day. Blood Sports TV will have your hero unit fighting against hordes and hordes of enemies in a pretty similar fashion as if you were playing a MOBA. Pretty similar. Amazing graphics because it uses the engine of another forgotten game by Fat Shark, by this Swedish studio, which has a lot of talent, in my opinion. But well, nowadays they make a lot of money with the Vermintide series, so they have left this old isometric engine kind of like as part of the past. It's part of their past. But well, it was a pretty advanced engine in terms of graphics for the time it was developed in. It's the engine of Crater Shadows over Soulside, the one we covered in the previous, the RPG, the isometric action RPG that we covered in the previous Vol. But yes, with that very same engine, they developed Blood Sports TV, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, if you like single player MOBAs, this one is portable. You can take it with you. Pretty much another great example. It's PC oriented, it's not console oriented. You cannot play this one with a controller like you can Guardians of Middle Earth. Awesome Nuts, the final and last offline MOBA that I've been able to reverse engineer. This one was easy because it's offline. It's a 2D MOBA developed for consoles, but this time I think it's the 8th generation rather than the 7th. This one is for the 7th, the Xbox 360 and the PS3, but this one is for the 8th generation, the PS4 and the Xbox One. At the very beginning, at the very dawn of that generation, that's why maybe it's forgotten. The servers have been shut down, but fortunately, the developers this time were intelligent, and as I said with World Shift, another RTS game, the MMO RTS game, pretty much the only MMO RTS game, the developers of Awesome Nuts did the same and developed one final patch when they saw that their game was about to die, when it was about to shut down. As I've said, even if it sounds hilarious, I think it should be illegal to not to release a final patch in which you make your game playable offline, because you are basically destroying property because the game is no longer playable. And I think it should be illegal, that there should always be a final patch that allows the player base to play them offline, at least against bots, even if, or at least so they have the base game files, because with the base game files they just need to create the server, and with that they can revive the game. At least you leave that option available. If you simply close the servers and you split, like it happens with a lot of MMORPGs, if you simply split the client and the base game files, it's impossible to recover. I've told you last time how many years it took me to reverse engineer these MMORPGs that we also need to showcase in the future. So I could only basically recover 5 out of all of them. Let's hope, as I've said, that Nexus Forever is the next one, and that Will Star is revived. And the other one is Darkspore, but well. Alright, people. Alright. After the RTS genre and the MOBA genre derived from the mod of Warcraft 3, of Defense of the Ancients 1, we have something different. The real-time tactics genre. And I always make this difference. And I always highlight this difference, sorry. The real-time tactics genre, as you can see there, the biggest, the the epitome of this genre, probably the modern epitome of this genre, is the Total War series created by the British studio Creative Assembly. There are two major differences that I will highlight this because I'll add timestamps to the YouTube blog. In the real-time tactics genre, there's no base building. Base building is next to non-existent or non-existent. So no base building, just like with MOBA games. That's why I have the MOBAs between the RTS and the real-time tactics games. But there's a second component, a second element. No base building, and secondly, positioning on the battlefield determines victory much more than APM. The production of units that we see present in the RTS genre that we see there, here is non-existent, because you usually create your units in a much bigger campaign map or any other solution that the developer came up with. In the case of the Total War series, the most famous solution is kind of like having a turn-based map with in which the campaign develops, and then the skirmishes, let's say, are played on the battlefield. Those skirmishes, the real-time tactics rather than strategy aspect of it, have that signature, that specific feature. Positioning on the battlefield determines victory. Now, think about StarCraft 2. Think about a MOBA. If you simply have APM, you'll have good unit production in the case of the RTS game. If you have good APM, you'll be able to land more precise attacks on the enemy in the case of the MOBA. But here, it's a matter of tactics, of positioning rather than speed. Does it mean it's easier? No, by all means, no. It has its own difficulty. Completing Rome 2 Total War, for example, on Legendary difficulty, it's a challenge. I've done so, but well, it takes a lot of time, and it can certainly... It's a test of your... It will be a test of your patience, ladies and gentlemen, without a doubt. But well, that's the key. Position, for example, a cavalry charge in this game from behind, being flanked in this game, means certain defeat most of the time, 99% of the time. And now think about StarCraft 2, Age of Empires 2. Even if you're attacked from behind, in Age of Empires 2, it's not that bad because you can still somehow maneuver your troops and win that battle. In Total War Rome 2 or any other game, any of the Total War franchise, if you are flanked by cavalry, you are most certainly dead, with a 100% probability. So yes, that's basically the key. So with that in mind, we begin with the real-time tactics genre. I've made some additions when compared to last year, and this is one of them. Total War Rome 2, the remastered version. This one has been fully updated, it's perfectly playable, and basically this is the complete Total War saga. Out of all of them, I managed to finish Medieval, all of them on the highest difficulty. Medieval 2, Medieval 1 will need a remaster after this one. This one has been recently remastered. Medieval 2, Total War Empire. My favorite ones are Total War Empire and Napoleon, the ones that I played the most, because they incorporate ranged gameplay. They incorporate the ranged gameplay mechanics, and yeah, pretty much in these ones, combat is not melee like in the first two that I have here. There's also Shogun 1, but those are way too old and there's no way to kind of like restore them. So here I have the ones that are playable at modern resolutions and frame rates. Total War Empire with its expansions, and Napoleon Total War, the same. I played all of these, and I'm here, stuck over at Total War Shogun 2. I also played Rome 2, so I need to play Shogun 2, which is previous to this one. Attila, Total War Attila. Total War Saga, Thrones of Britannia. pretty much. These are the modern entries: Total War Three Kingdoms, Total War Saga Troy, and then the legendary marriage of between the Warhammer license and the Total War license, Total War Warhammer 1, and yeah, pretty much Total War Warhammer 1, 2, and recently the third entry has been released. And here we have Warhammer Mark of Chaos. Here we have Warhammer Mark of Chaos, and yeah, pretty much Warhammer Mark of Chaos is the one that we showcased on stream. This was back from that period of time in which the real-time tactics games tried to make that transition to console games. And yes, pretty much the this is a unique, this kind of like Warhammer Total War 0.5 with the battle march. I completely covered this game 100%. Every single mission of the campaign, everything on the hardest difficulty. You have the stream, the YouTube Vol, just in case you are interested. And yes, pretty much you this is, if you like Warhammer Total War Warhammer 2 and 1, you have to play Warhammer Mark of Chaos, developed by Black Hole Entertainment. The other one is King Arthur 2. This is pretty similar. These are all similar to Total War. King Arthur 2. This game has been developed by Neocore Games. This one has been developed by Neocore Games, the developers of Warhammer Inquisitor Martyr, and it's pretty interesting. Technically speaking, it has some flaws. King Arthur 2, the role-playing war game. It has some flaws, but it's still enjoyable. It's still enjoyable at high resolutions and with the mythological British creatures. So yeah, pretty much the thing about this game is that you can play with mythological creatures. I play with mythological creatures, and the graphics are pretty good considering the time it was released in, to 2011. And the last one is the Ultimate General American Civil War. The Ultimate General American Civil War. If you liked Empire, Total War Empire and Total War Napoleon, the Ultimate General American Civil War is pretty much made for you. And yes, 100%. It will capture for you all of the aspects of Empire Total War and Napoleon Total War. It will capture all of those aspects that you like. So if you like those, you'll probably like the Ultimate General American Civil War. It doesn't have such good graphics as the other ones, but well, I think you'll fairly enjoy it. Company of Heroes. I played this one. Almost completely. Extremely tough game. The campaign. It can take a whole day just to finish per mission of this game. It can take a whole entire day just to finish this game. Just to finish each mission of this game. Just think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Just to finish this mission. Brutally hard. And this is the birth of the squad-based games. There's no base building. Positioning on the battlefield determines victory, because you can take cover and fire from some cover or bring tanks or those things. Positioning is somehow important. This one has extremely light base building elements. Extremely light base building elements, and yes. Um, and yes, I would arguably say that Company of Heroes 2 is much more polished, but the original one is the one that you need to play without a doubt, because it's a living part of gaming history. This is a squad-based game. Here you just control a group of soldiers, and you have to survive World.War 2, and it's pretty amazing. In these games, as you can see, you must have played some of these games. Warhammer 40k, Dawn of War 2, the same. You control a squad. And pretty much you also have to. It's basically going from point A to point B. Here, it's extremely tactical. It's the epitome of real-time tactics. It's just um, ensuring that your units survive, not your base, nothing else at all. They are extremely challenging. I finished this one as well. Warhammer Dawn of War 40k, Dawn of War 2 Retribution. So yes, this one is another great example. It's the forgotten expansion of this one. Warhammer Dawn of War 3, developed by Relic relatively recently, and yes, I didn't get to play it, but this one was a disaster. I tried it, but I didn't play it in depth. This one is considered a disaster. You cannot play skirmish without constant internet connection, which nowadays I think the servers have been shut down or what, I don't know, but well, pretty much you'll be forced to play just the campaign. It doesn't have skirmish mode. That's a critical flaw, so that's why I don't recommend it. Play Company of Heroes 1 and Dawn of War 2. This one, if you mod it, you can play it at unlocked frame rates. So yes, highly recommended. It's a tough game. It's extremely tough, just like what I highlighted about Rise of Nations. Extremely tough, but if you can endure that, it'll grow upon you. Wargame Red Dragon. The other game that I would suggest, like this one, is Act of Aggression, but I didn't like it. But it's similar. The best one is Whirling Conflict. These are massive, real squad-based games. Here, there's no base building as well. You just control different units, and it's kind of like modern warfare. Order of War, pretty similar. Codename Panzer's Cold War, pretty similar. I need to explore this section. Faces of War, Men of War Red Tie, Men of War Vietnam, Men of War Assault Squad 2, Call to Arms. These are all kind of like squad-based games. There's zero base building, pure tactics. See how many examples you have here. Let me go back, just in case anyone wants to pause this as a YouTube pod. There you go. Codename Panzers, Cold War, Order of War, Faces of War. There we go. Call to Arms. These are modern. Call to Arms. These are from the early 2000s, the Men of War series, and the Order of Wars game here. Whirling Conflict is the best out of all of them, probably. Also Wargame Red Dragon. Call to Arms. Partisans 1941, also modern. This one covers the Italian section of World.War 2, that's why I have it here. Sudden Strike, that is also like Commandos. If you have played Commandos, you'll probably like this one. Sudden Strike 4, this one is not that good, but well, Steel Division is amazing. Normandy 44, I played this one. Steel Division 2, also amazing. All of them are generally based around World.War 2. Iron Harvest 1920 plus. People complain a lot about this game. They complain a lot about this game, but I think it was a solid entry. It's a steampunk World War scenario. It mixes steampunk elements and fantasy. I like it. I would highly suggest it. This one and the last one, War Mongrels. After all of the updates, these two are indie releases, but the same goes for the rest. This genre is highly dominated by indie releases nowadays. It has few AAA releases, as you can see here. So yes, this one is indie dominated, 100%. But it's a genre that has been much more stable when compared to the real-time strategy genre. It kind of like they always knew what they were doing. So yeah, pretty much. They always knew what they were going for in this genre. That's what I like about this. They always knew what they were going for. Always the same setting, World.2, the same tactics and the same gameplay. So amazing, absolutely amazing, amazing. And yeah, pretty much. Iron Harvest 1920 plus War Mongrels and Steel Division, they are must play. These last four are must play. The same goes for, could be said, for Call to Arms. And these are the classics. I just mentioned the most prominent examples. And well, that's the end of it. I never expected to finish this today at this rate. But well, ladies and gentlemen, remember we are going to cover the offline MOBA showcase eventually in a couple of weeks. So once we go back to Hellgate London. So yes, yeah, pretty much. And as you could see, the jewels of my collection are the offline MOBAs and the offline MMORPGs. Kind of like having those pieces of gaming history archived forever. It's beyond any comparison. It's amazing. It's like stepping on sacred ground. It's pretty much like stepping on sacred ground. Pretty much like it. And well, today we covered real-time strategy with its variants, with the squad-based variant and the classic individually controlled units variant, and the space variant right here with all of its variants. Then we covered the MOBA genre, then we covered the real-time tactics genre, and then we covered the real-time tactics squad-based genre, right? Kind of like it's a much more specific scope of the real-time tactics genre. So yeah, we covered a lot of see how rich gaming history is if we begin to analyze it, see how many lost stories are there that we should pay more attention to. But well, remember I won't be able to stream next week, but maybe on Sunday we'll be able to play London 2038. Either that, or we continue with the next row, with the FPS row. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thanks from the bottom of my heart to anyone who may have taken the time to watch this either live or as a YouTube VOD. From the bottom of my heart, thanks to anyone who may have taken the time to watch this, or the finale of London 2038, or I don't know, or the finale of London 2038, or the Ultimate 3DS collection. So thanks from the bottom of my heart. And I hope this helps you, kind of like when we discover what's outside of the Earth. Once we discover how immense the universe is, pretty much this is a pretty similar scenario. That's what I hope to achieve by showcasing all of these games. You can see how big the universe of video games is, and how most 99% of the people only explore a tiny fraction of it. And with this VOD, with this video, my idea is to expand the horizon, to showcase what's beyond Earth, but in this case, in terms of video games. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. You have the finale of London 2038 over at YouTube. You have the Ultimate 3DS collection, and now you'll have the 2023 PC game collection. Hope my showcase was useful and that it actually helped you discover a lot of games that would have been otherwise sadly ignored. So thanks from the bottom of my heart to anyone who may have taken the time to watch this, as I've said, either as a YouTube VOD or a Twitch VOD. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. See you all next time. Bye bye.